23rd. This is the Norton Charter Commission. All members are present with the exception of David Heaney. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we begin, is anybody other than Shane taping this meeting? Very good. We do have an agenda this evening, but since we have invited guests, we will move the agenda around. We very much appreciate your time and understand that it's important, and we appreciate you all coming in. We're going to take you in the order of, we're going to take Catherine first, and then Beth, and then I figured we'll probably need the most amount of time with Bill, if you don't mind waiting until the end.
Not at all.
Catherine, you can have a seat right here in the end in the comfy chair.
Oh, good. Thank you. I printed out some job things. I think this should be enough. You can have that. I have more if we run out. I wasn't sure how many people were here, so.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
With large print, too.
Large print.
Yep.
Live by it.
We appreciate you coming in. Again, we very much appreciate your time, and I promise this won't be too painful at all. Nothing
Okay.
you won't know the answer to, hopefully. Understanding you just gave us a handout. Wow, that is large print. If you could please just give us a brief overview of your role and your staff.
Sure. My name is Catherine Van Dyne. I am the treasurer-collector for the town of Norton. I say that all the time because I'm always introducing myself when I'm at a meeting. You all know I'm at the town of Norton. Sorry about that. We have a staff of, there's me and 3 others. I have an assistant, and then I have one girl who does basically payroll and benefits, and then I have my principal account clerk who's at the front desk. So when you come down to my office, the first person you're going to see is Janice, who's very bubbly and friendly. She's been with me since July something, and she's doing a great job. So we are responsible for all the money in the town. So if there's anything money-related, it comes through my office. So what I did here, that was just the detail of the office, because there's a lot we do, and it's kind of hard to explain everything we do. But it's mostly money and collections, so.
And do you work with a board?
I have no board.
No board, okay.
I report directly to the town manager.
You do. And you said you have 3 employees?
3,
Okay. And are they all full-time?
yes.
Are you happy with what are your thoughts on the level of autonomy you have in your position?
What do you mean by autonomy?
Ability to make decisions on your own?
Oh, as far as running the office goes?
Yes.
Oh, that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
Actually, I've made quite a few changes over the years. One of the biggest ones we've just made is moving payroll to completely electronic, would you call it, or online. So that's going to free up a little bit of Courtney's time, but also make it a lot easier for the employees to be able to download, look at their pay. Funny story, last year we gave the W-2s out, and within hours, we had requests for people who had already lost them. So this will be great, because now I'll be able to just direct them to their login, and they can print their W-2s, and actually the prior 2 years are there for them. So it's going to make it a lot easier as far as that goes.
I'm assuming they can get pay stubs there as well?
Yes.
And when was this enacted?
We did a demo last payroll. This
So it's brand new?
It's brand new. This
Okay.
coming payroll will also be the same, and then by the payroll of October, I don't remember what the exact date was, I think it's the 12th, it'll be completely online. No more pay stubs.
Is that expected to free up your time other than people looking for duplicate items?
It'll free up a little bit of time, but it's also creating more work for Courtney right now as people are making changes.
Okay.
Because she has to approve everything that goes, so. We're just hoping to make it a little more user-friendly for everybody.
And you said you report directly to Town Manager Mike Units?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the level of oversight and guidance that you receive from him?
Oh, I think it's great. We have a good working relationship, actually have a great working relationship, or at least I think so, with all the department heads that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, so we have a good team.
Do you feel that you have access to everything you need, and that could be information, technology, people that you need to do your job and run your department properly?
No, I do not. The biggest issue we have right now is IT. When my computer has issues, and remember now that I have to log into banks, everything has to be secure, and I don't have a level of security when I do that. I'm very nervous. I change my passwords constantly. I'm just afraid of a cyber attack, because if something should happen, we don't have someone here. We have to wait for Tuesday or Thursday morning, and if you're lucky, between 8:30 and 12:30, you might be able to get assistance. So it's a major problem. I actually have the same computer that I started with back 5.5 years ago, and that's another thing. I don't even know what level of Microsoft I'm running, and a lot of times it's not compatible with some of the websites I need to go to. So that's my biggest concern is the IT section and the security. There's been a lot of ransom attacks through 2 municipalities. One just recently I saw at a conference I was just at, and they had high security and they had a ransom attack, so makes you a little nervous.
How about in terms of people?
My staff?
Yes. Do you feel you have enough to run your department properly?
At the moment, I do, but as things keep getting changed and more responsibilities seem to be ending up in my office, I don't think we can continue, so if anything else gets added, for instance, like the Affordable Care Act has added a whole nother level of responsibility and filing. A lot of that has fallen upon me and my payroll staff, so as things change, I don't think I will have enough staff. And another big thing is a lot of the HR gets kind of dumped in my office as well. And we have no privacy. I mean, if I'm talking to you and you want to add insurance and you want a private conversation, there is no place. And I've been reprimanded a couple times by other staff that they could overhear what was being said in my office, and I said, where am I supposed to go? Aside from going into my vault, which is just full of stuff, that's the only private space I have in this town hall. And it's very frustrating on a day-to-day basis to do my job. Even on the phone, talking to my banks, my financial investors, everybody can hear everything I say. I have no confidentiality whatsoever. And I don't feel comfortable taking my cell phone and going out into my car and making those type calls, because I don't want those people to have my cell phone number.
Have you noticed any trends in your industry that you feel are potentially impacting your role or your department going forward?
Just a lot of the cyber attacks. That's just one. The financial institutions, these hackers, I wish they would use their expertise and all that good stuff for good instead of trying to attack us. Municipalities are one of the highest ones they attack. We actually had a slight attack on our positive pay, which is when we write vendor checks, we have what we call positive pay now, so every check goes through the bank. And we had someone who tried to cash the same check. Different names, they changed the name, and they were very creative, but a little stupid because they didn't change it enough. So we caught them. So that one check was tried twice, and then some other vendor created their own check. So those are kind of the things that are worrisome in the industry, because you write a check, everyone has your routing number and your account number.
So these are vendors of the town that have tried to defraud?
They weren't our vendors. Somehow our vendor check was either intercepted or not disposed of properly. Because you're taking pictures of your checks now, they're not even going to the bank, so I shred everything. But a lot of people aren't that careful to shred.
Do you belong to any associations, career associations related to other town treasurers or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm actually a member of the Mass Collectors and Treasurers Association. I am a certified treasurer and a certified collector through that organization. I received both certifications over the last few years, and this year I will be recertified. I belong to that, and then I also belong to the Bristol County Association, which is our local association, and they have a lot of good programming throughout the year on cyber attacks, just to help us with debt financing. And
in the course of your meeting with any of these associations, have you worked in or with, or come across any towns where the role of treasurer collector is handled differently?
Most of them are handled pretty much the same. Some towns are big enough where they have a separate collector, a separate treasurer,
Yep.
and a separate payroll department. But the smaller towns are similar to ours, where all three positions are kind of lumped into one. But we all pretty much do the same things. I've actually gone and taught at some of the classes of the certification for the people who are going to get certified.
Other than the cyber attacks within these meetings and the associations, any new trends that are coming up that might impact your department going forward?
Not really trends as much as we talk about the interest rates and what they're doing as far as when we go out to borrow and, what our Standard & Poor's rating is, that kind of thing.
Anything on a regulatory basis?
No.
Okay.
No, well, we are governed by the Mass Legal List, so there's it's pretty strict as to what we can invest our money in and what savings banks we can invest our money in. I do get a Veribank report quarterly, and I keep a good eye on it
Okay.
and make sure that all the banks that the town's money is invested in are green and not yellow or red.
Do you live in town?
I do not. But I grew up in town and graduated from Norton High School. I just won't tell you the year.
We won't ask.
Okay.
As it relates to how our town government operates, what do you think we're currently doing that we should discontinue, if anything?
I don't foresee anything that I don't think we should continue. As far as I know, just the way it works.
Okay.
And from what I can see, I'm down in my office most of the time. So I know when I'm at town meeting and that kind of issues and things, I go to the, what's for votes and that, but.
As it relates to our town government operates, is there anything you think we should start doing?
I didn't give that any thought, actually.
Okay.
So I.
You certainly
don't
don't have to
know.
have all of the answers tonight.
Okay.
I'll follow up with a thank you email, and you'll have
Okay.
my email
I'll give
address.
Sure, I'll give that a little more thought.
Okay, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it.
I tried to anticipate some questions, and that one wasn't on it.
That's okay. Well, here's another one you probably hadn't thought about. Was there anything that we didn't ask about that you might like to discuss tonight?
Okay. I just, I was looking at some of the ones that you asked about, what do you like about Norton's government, what don't you like about Norton's or whatever.
Yep.
And I would say that up to a few years ago, I felt valued and respected, but lately I do not, with a lot of the chitter-chatter going on. I just feel like no one appreciates what the town hall employees do. And I take that as especially my office, where I do the payroll and collect the money and pay the bills, and I just feel like there's just a lot of people out there who just have no clue what we do, and even what this town hall looks like. I was very appalled at the town meeting where someone stood up and said we had a brand-new building, and I just wanted to say, have you ever stepped foot in this building? And I welcome anybody, any day, who wants to come down and sit in my office for 10 minutes, hear the noise, and tell me how you would work. Yes.
Yeah.
Case in point.
Yes.
So, not to push the town hall, but it would be nice.
I completely understand. There are some things that are a little outside of our scope, but we do appreciate your
Yes.
thoughts
No,
on
I
it.
understand.
Getting back to feeling valued, can you tell me the decline in your, the amount that you feel valued, is that because of people coming in and, abusing your kindness personally? Are you hearing about this in other places? Is this a personal attack, or things you've just heard about?
There's been a couple personal attacks, I just can't get into that.
No, I understand. I'm trying to.
I think a lot of it was maybe miscommunication, where I was blamed for things maybe I did or didn't do. We're not perfect, none of us are, and I am surely not. If I know there's an issue, I take responsibility and I fix it as soon as possible. It's just some of the social media posts that I have seen, heard, which maybe not necessarily an attack upon me, but when you attack people that I work with, I take that personally as an attack upon me as well.
Okay. Do you think with the increase in social media that your feelings of value have changed due to that?
Yes, I think social media is the downfall of this country, if you really want to know. It's so easy to sit behind a computer screen and type things.
Yeah.
You know, if you have something you want to tell me, come see me.
Understood.
You know, because
I
most of
will.
the people, okay, thank you. I mean, I'm the tax collector. I have to do the dirty work.
Yep.
I have to collect money. I have to send you harassing letters. And most of the people that come in that actually meet with me are very nice and thankful that I at least care, because I'll work with you. I'll work with anybody who comes in. So I just don't like being known as the mean person or whatever, because that's not who I am.
Understood. Anything else that you'd like to discuss with us?
No, I think that's all I wrote down.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes, please.
Go ahead. No, go.
I just wanted to backtrack a little to the IT that you were talking about.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're a little behind the times in terms of your software and your equipment and things like that. Do you have a budget for that stuff in your office and that you can keep up to date on the latest
We don't have
softwares for your?
Yeah, we don't have budgets for that. That
Okay.
goes through whatever the overall budget is.
Okay.
I get a very small budget for office supplies, and out of that, I have to pay even for the envelopes to mail the checks, and, I'm very strict with my budget. You can ask my staff. I don't even let them buy a pencil without permission.
And then, do you find, is your, the software that you're using, and, you talked about the software and the computers, do you find that in comparison to other departments in similar around surrounding towns, that you are below them, on par with them, or ahead of them in terms
Oh,
of?
definitely below them.
You say that
Yeah.
you're below.
Yeah, because there's no money, really, there isn't any money spent on any software or any updates. When I go to my conferences and they ask, what collection software are you using? And I say Data National, and they say, gee, that's an elephant, or a dinosaur, we
Right.
haven't heard that one.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the software, it's just there's not a lot of people using that one.
Well, and I would worry that with software, at some point, it's gonna be outdated, and it's just
And it's
not gonna
gonna
be
crash.
usable.
Yeah,
That would be.
and we're everything's so much in the computer, that computer crashes. What do you do, right? That's another fear of mine. I mean, I do print a lot of paper for that reason, but then we have no storage. Have you been downstairs? So, yeah, thank you.
Ooh, several other people that we've had in to speak to us have mentioned HR, human resources. We've discussed it here as well. How would that directly affect you? And if, for instance, a human resources was implemented, it would probably come under your department. How would it affect you guys? And how would you kind of see that going if that was implemented?
Well, actually, I would think that if there was a human resource director, it would come under the town manager's office, and that person would be also helpful with hiring, firing, a person you could go to if you have a dispute or an issue, as well as the benefits, and then it would flow through to my office for the actual payroll piece.
So you could use, for instance, if there was an HR director that fell under the parameters of the town manager, you would still be able to keep your payroll or benefits coordinator to basically enter that information and be the kind of liaison between it.
Right.
Do you see something like that being able to help your department if a human resources, director was implemented?
Oh, immensely. It would just be a huge,
So what's the protocol now, or the steps now? For instance, if a town employee comes in, has an issue regarding whether it be benefits or, a problem with whatever may have gone on, and it is a human resources, what do you do in your office, or what do your staff go about handling it?
well, we can handle the insurance piece, so if they have an issue with coverage or they need to add someone, but we can't handle a dispute with another employee or a sexual harassment thing. We don't handle anything like that. Another piece we handle a little bit is the family medical leave, but that really needs to go out of our office, because I don't see the timesheet, so I don't even know when people are in and out. And that's another piece that HR could do, is the time and attendance kind of thing.
So as of now, you would defer that directly to the town manager?
I would if I had an issue, but I've never had someone come in with an issue like that, because I don't think they would know even where to go. You know, like, I just don't. I mean, I haven't heard that they've gone to see the town manager. I mean, maybe they have, and I just haven't heard it, but,
In the other towns, or, these committees that you meet with,
Mm-hmm.
they have a human resource director, I would assume?
yes, they do.
They're
Most,
very far behind the times.
most towns have a human resource person.
And they
yes.
work directly with, like, payroll and treasury and stuff?
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, so they would enroll the people, and then they would walk down to Courtney and say, here you go, and she would do the next step with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a couple.
Yes.
I had a couple questions.
Okay.
My name is Dave Wren.
Hi.
How you doing? So following up on Janie's question a little bit with the IT questions, and I guess my general question is like, so you're talking about payroll and cash management systems.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where is all this data stored?
On this, one of the servers that sometimes goes down.
Okay.
And then we can't access any of it.
It's stored there,
Yes.
and is it stored anywhere else?
I'm not sure, well, I shouldn't say all of it, because the cash management, I think, is more web-based.
Okay.
So like where all my, where I balance all the cash accounts.
Right.
But the actual tax collections, like who pays their bills and all that, that I believe is stored. And I think the server is at the police station, I don't know, do you know, is that where the server
There's
is?
a lot of stuff over there.
There's a lot of stuff over there.
Uh,
That's beyond me.
So it won't be stolen, I guess, but the,
Yeah, it's at the police
at the
station.
police station.
But there's many times where we can't get in and we have to call someone and say, can you reboot it, or something.
So what about like the payroll system? Is that on the web?
It's going to the
One of
web.
garages.
It's going to the web, but currently it's not on the web.
It's semi-web-based. It's not 100% web-based. Like, we don't log into a website right now. We log into a program on our desktop, but it does speak to Harper's. So we use Harper's software, which actually is the best one, I think, for municipalities. This is the third town I've worked in that's used Harper's. So, but we're moving with the online that we're just rolling out for all the employees. The next step is to be totally web-based.
Right.
But that also makes me a little nervous too, because like tonight, I couldn't even get into my own home Outlook because something was going on with the web base. So that again has its issues.
I was just thinking about cybersecurity a little bit, and, if there was ever a ransomware attack,
Right.
and you don't have a backup somewhere.
And that's what happened to this other town, and I think it was like Dedham or one of those. It was a good-sized town, and they just got attacked, so.
Yeah.
Is that the trend to go web-based, though? Is that the trend within the department?
Well, a lot of the software packages that we use are pushing out to go to web-based.
web-based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't think the accounting software is web-based, but again, I think it's like semi-web-based,
Yeah.
where you have it on your desktop, but then you're also backing up somewhere. I think. I don't know. It's in the cloud somewhere. I don't know where it is.
It seems like a lot of steps.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You made a reference to tax collections information, the data being stored on a server.
Yes.
Is there a redundant system, or are you not aware of one? Let's say, your file from yesterday, it goes down and you need to recreate it. Is there a backup of the data on a nightly basis or a weekly
I
basis?
believe, the best of my knowledge, it's backed up every night.
Okay.
I can't confirm. Someone asked me that just the other day, and I said, I think it's backed up every night.
Okay.
And that's why even like Dedham or whatever the town was, they had a backup, but it was like a week or two old. But something happened with them where they lost all their assessors' information, and they had to rebuild that. That didn't sound very fun.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Just so I understand, I know you oversee, let's say you oversee all the debt of the town. Does that include the water department also?
Yes.
It does, so you
Yes, it does. Yeah, all dead.
all debt. And then I guess my final question is more of a process or a question perhaps. When we met with James Pulo, am I saying that?
Puello.
Puello?
Yep.
Thank you. The town accountant.
Yes.
He had mentioned that, with town meeting and transferring money between funds or accounts, you had to wait for town meeting to kind of approve it and before we could do those kind of things.
Right.
Do you have any, like, does town meeting impact your job as far as having to wait for things to happen?
Yes.
Would be a lot nicer if you could do it a lot sooner.
Yes, and at some times, yeah, when you, especially like, because you need approval to borrow.
Right.
I can't just go out and get a ban even if I needed it. A ban is bond anticipation note, so you need the town meeting approval to do that.
Okay. And do you have any idea, like, let's just say we went to a town council, just to throw it out there? Would that make a change in that way, how that works, or do you have any idea? Or?
I think, I don't really know 100% how it all works. I live in North Attleboro, and I'm not even sure how North Attleboro works, but that might, I think the council can approve that kind of thing, so you wouldn't have to go to town meeting and wait for the vote, because you technically, basically, the council votes to approve the spending or
Right.
whatever it would be.
Right. Yeah, I know James had mentioned that was like besides changing his title, it would be quicker.
Yeah, I don't think it would, the form of government wouldn't change my role of everyday work, but it could
Right.
speed some stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're all set. We very much appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
All right, next up, we have Beth.
She's excited.
I don't have handouts.
That's okay. This is Beth Rossi, Director of Human Services and Council on Aging. And Beth, why don't you give us a little bit of a background? How long have you been in your position, and tell us a little bit about your role and your staff?
Okay. I've been here for 5 years. I think it's important to know a little bit of the history before I came. I know I don't even know how many years, but they went for several years without a director, and it was run solely by volunteers, and they were phenomenal. I guess one of the Board of Selectmen tossed the keys to one of my current board members and said, open it up and do something for the seniors in this town. And they did. They opened it up. They started a couple days a week with, I think, bingo and cards. And then they actually grew the program to adding some fitness programs and things like that. As they were in this role as volunteers trying to run a senior center, they realized that they were getting a lot of calls from residents who had issues. Most of them were seniors at the time, and they would call over to Attleboro and try to get some advice, or they would send people to Attleboro, and finally Attleboro got fed up and, spoke to the town manager here and said, you really need to hire a director, so got me. So I've been here for 5 years, and currently I have one part-time employee. Her name is Kathy Varnum. She's a phenomenal person, and she's the outreach worker. And what an outreach worker does, they go out in the community to take care of the people who can't make it into the senior center. So she's dealing with all our homebound individuals and bringing the work that we do in the center out to them. So she's pretty phenomenal. Other than that, I have about 51 volunteers that I also coordinate. And they do the best that they can do. Bumps along the way, but it's what we have. I also coordinate the contractors that come in. I have fitness instructors that come in. I got a Zumba, yoga instructor, a Zumba instructor, and a line dancer instructor who come in. I also have AARP tax preparers that come in during tax season, so I oversee that, as well as the Shine volunteers. I'm also Shine certified. Shine is Medicare counseling, so when people need help enrolling in Medicare, finding the best plans for them, seeing if there are any helping programs out there, that's something we do as well. So I do that, Kathy Varnum does that, as well as we have, I think we're getting another volunteer during open enrollment period, which starts October 15th through December 7th.
And you do have a board.
I do.
And what is the responsibility of your board?
The board is, we have 9 people and 2 alternates. It's an advisory board, So it's the Council on Aging Board, and their main role is to sort of assess the needs of the community as far as the seniors in the community, and make sure that the senior center is providing for those needs.
And how do you presently work together?
Fine.
No, I mean, in
how-
practicality.
Practically,
Yes.
we work fine together. We have monthly meetings.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I wish they were a little more visionary, as opposed to sort of checking up as far as what's currently happening. I wish we had a little more forward thinking going on, because you're going to talk about trends in a little bit. There's a lot of changes in the population, and there's a lot of stuff that we really need to be planning for and thinking about. One is the increase in population. I've been here for 5 years, and the population has increased almost 1,000 seniors. The increase is 959 since when I was here before, and it's continued to grow. Not only do we have more, the boomers are getting to be that age, but we also have people living longer. So we need to sort of meet the needs of the newer seniors who are aging, but we also need to address the needs of the older population. So a lot of the surrounding communities, and we're actually part of it, are starting dementia-friendly, where we're having, you're now going to have a consultant be able to go out into the community. I know the town hall, my staff got trained on what does it mean to be dementia-friendly, and how do you deal with somebody who has those symptoms and keep them in the community as long as possible. So once we get more involved with this, they'll be training the banks to sort of, what do you do when someone like that comes into your establishment, and how can you best handle that? So,
And how is your board presently appointed?
how are they appointed? That's a really good question. Whoever wants to gets on, pretty much. A lot of the people who are on the board now have been there. We've had a few new ones. When someone steps down, I select a few people, they express interest, and then we vote them in. There is a whole voting process.
It's the Board of Selectmen as the appointing authority?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Are you happy with that process?
Yes.
Can I just expound on that, just perhaps?
Sure.
Where that question was coming from, perhaps. So I think some boards feel that people get appointed to their boards. They get appointed because, they go before the selectmen, they don't really understand the role, but they volunteer and they get appointed.
Yeah, I think for us, it's kind of more reverse, where we select them and then appoint them, and then the Board of Selectmen kind of approves them.
Right.
It's not like people are knocking down my door to be on my board. I would
Yeah,
love it if
but
they
it
did.
sounds like it comes up through yourself.
Right, yes.
And then the final step is they get appointed by the Board of Selectmen. But
Right.
at that point, it's a rubber stamp, but at least they've talked to you and
Right, so they know what they're getting into.
getting into it.
And again, it's an advisory role, so it's a little more laid back.
Because they don't take votes, do they, the board? Is there any
They
vote?
do.
they
We
do.
vote, oh yeah, we vote on stuff.
Like, what would you vote on? Just out of curiosity.
Do we want to be in the Halloween parade? That was one that came up. We voted yes. We vote on things I would present to them, hey, there's a big need for more fitness. What do you think? Should we have Zumba twice a week instead of once a week? Things like that.
So they work with the budget and
Casino groups.
Yeah.
Do they bring ideas to you?
Again, I wish they were a little more visionary, but I think, they do, and we discuss it. We think it's a good PR thing to be part of the parade, so we're going to go ahead with that.
You said you had 51 volunteers. Is there a natural path for maybe somebody to go and sit on the Council on Aging Commission? Does that?
I think, I'm trying to think of our most recent people have been volunteers.
Okay.
I think they've sat at the front desk, they see the people coming in, and they enjoy it, and then they want to have a voice in that process.
Okay, so there's a nice holistic flow of
Right.
people getting on, and at
So
least they
my-
understand.
Right. So my board, they're Council on Aging, and I think it's important for you all to know that I am also the Director of Human Services. So, which is a total different, it's another job, actually.
Right.
It's a totally separate job. the one that takes up the most of my time. And that's sort of taking care of everybody in town who may be facing a crisis one way or the other. So, I mean, the crises I handle on a weekly basis could be anything from elder abuse and neglect to a domestic situation to food insecurity to eviction to, I met with a young woman a week ago who did not have electricity or gas for the last 6 months. So these are the cases that, you know, come into my office and also Kathy Varnum's office pretty much on a daily basis. So whenever you plan to do anything, these things come in the door and you deal with them.
So the human services doesn't necessarily mean the senior population?
No, no, it's all ages.
And you report to the town manager?
Town manager. yeah.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on the level of autonomy that you have in your position?
I have a lot of autonomy in my position. It's fine.
What are your thoughts on the level of oversight or guidance from the town?
It's fine. Mike's very available if I, you know, have a crisis that I'm going through. I work really well with the different boards. I work very closely with the Veterans Agent. She and I share a lot of cases. We had a case where I was working with the Board of Health very closely with a resident who was facing eviction. So I think we work really well as a team now, all the directors, I really do. And now we've initiated directors' meetings on a monthly basis, so we can really talk about some of the stuff that's going on, so that's fun too.
I have attended many of your info sessions over the past year, so I'm going to ask the question because I've been asking this of everyone. Do you have access to everything you need in thinking about information technology or people in order to do your job properly?
We do the best we can. I mean, to answer the question honestly, the answer would be no. Facility-wise, I'm in a one-room schoolhouse. It was built in the late 1800s. It probably had the capacity to hold about 30 kids. You know, on a daily basis, I've got between 75 and 80 people coming through the front door. I have to turn people away. I don't have enough parking. So people come in, I see them drive in and drive out. The people who do choose to stay and park have to park behind a garage. In the winter, if they felt I couldn't see them. No, the facility is ridiculous. If we had a bigger facility, we could do so much more. Staffing, I told you, I have one part-time person right now. I know you asked her a question, and I'm just going to go with it. When I'm at an MCOA conference talking to other directors, they're like, Beth, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, maybe I'm an idiot and I don't know any better, but I do what I do for the residents of Norton, you know, and I will sit with anyone, and a lot of times my day goes more than the 40 hours. Estelle, the Veterans Agent as well, you know, we were on the phone this past weekend at 9 at night trying to get somebody a ride. So, you know, I love the people I work with, all of them, and I do what I do because of that, but I could do so much more. Most towns have a director that sort of oversees things. They direct. I, on the other hand, I'm in the trenches. So I'm setting up the furniture for the dailies. I come in the morning and I'm schlepping tables and chairs and getting the room all set up. Throwing the coffee on, making sure the bathroom has toilet paper because we don't have a janitor. On Thursdays, I lug the recyclables out to the curb. All right, and that's just in the first half hour that I'm there. You know, then I'm dealing with crises, or I have shine appointments, or I'm doing an elder needs assessment, or I'm on the phone trying to finagle some nursing home to give us some free entertainment or something. So most directors have a staff. They have an assistant. They have somebody who plans the programming. There's a separate wing somewhere in a different building where they're doing human services. I'm doing it all, and I love it. I love the people I'm not complaining at all, but a little support would go a long way in meeting the needs of the people in town.
When you say support, what do you mean specifically?
Staffing.
Okay.
And you know, she mentioned social media and just understanding You know, I get so sad when people trash old people on the internet, or when people trash the people who come looking for fuel assistance or food stamps. It's like, unless you walk in their shoes, you have no idea. So that part gets a little frustrating. We need to have some compassion and really know that in my professional role, I am sitting with people and I am screening them. I'm making sure that people aren't double dipping, triple dipping, but I'm making sure they get what they need to live here, I guess.
Have you noted any trends in either human services or on council on aging that you see potentially impacting?
I talked about the increase in senior population.
Yep.
That's huge.
Okay.
Again, my numbers increase every year, even though there's no place to park. I don't know how we're doing it, but they're still coming. We have an awesome place. I mean, I would really recommend you come and see it. It's such a happy, vibrant place. And there's no one old there. And I think, you know, people say, oh, I'm too old to go to the senior center. They can dance circles around me, and they're funny. We just have it's a really happy place. And there's a lot of people in town who are lonely. And there are a lot of people in town who have no one. And that is the purpose of a senior center. It's for the people who don't have children who live nearby, whose spouse may have passed away, 5 or 6 years ago. I've got a group of women, and they're hilarious, and they sit at one table, and they're all widows. And they found each other, and they found the senior center where they can come and chat and have a good time, and it doesn't cost them a whole heck of a lot of money, and they're not at home in front of the TV by themselves. And it's great. I've had other people who come in, and now they're dating. Like, that is so cool. I think I've had one wedding so far, and but it's nice because no one likes to be alone, and that is the main goal. People on social media be like, oh, it's just knitting and bingo. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Sometimes when bingo is the only time you get out of your house and you're sitting at a table with other people and you're drinking coffee and you're laughing and you're joking, that's huge. It's huge. Isolation is worse for your health than smoking cigarettes. So everything we do at the senior center, whether it's knitting or bingo or an educational program or fitness activity, is to increase the health of our residents. As far as human services go, we as a town need to be a little more proactive with our 40Bs. Because whenever we have a 40B come in, like the East Main Street apartments, my human services numbers go up. So it's more people looking for fuel assistance and food stamps and, oh my gosh, Johnny's got to start school next week and we don't have a $100 calculator. I mean, these are the things that we hear all the time. So I would love to see us do some proactive finding a piece of property, developing it, making it low-income senior housing, senior disabled housing, so we have some control that we're not burdening our schools, and that's just me.
Plus, I go to your senior center unannounced and I say, hi, seniors, and I brighten up their seniors' lives.
He does all the time. It's phenomenal.
As it relates to how our town government operates, what do you think that we currently do that we should keep doing?
As far as our town, what should we keep doing?
Yeah, town government operations. Or keep doing or discontinue.
I don't know. I mean, I think town meetings are too long for seniors, for a lot of the people that I work with. Maybe have it on a weekend during the day or something that would attract more of the people that I work with. It's the only thing I can really think of right now.
Anything you can think of that we should start doing?
Start doing?
Yes,
As far as
as it relates to town government and the way it operates.
like town meeting, are you specifically talking about, or just anything
related-
here? I
yeah,
mean, I know
anything related
people.
to
I know she was talking about within this building here. It would be great to have the human resource person. I know when I started here as a new hire, I was just put in there, create a position, Beth, and I learned by mistake, and oh boy, talk to James about how many errors I did. It would be nice to have that for people when they come in. You know, IT was mentioned, my computer's still 5 years old as well. It would be nice if we had some sort of plan. It would be nice if I had some sort of budget. I mean, right now, we are second to last in the state for the amount of money we spend on senior programming. Wareham is just below us, so if you think of all the little podunk towns out west, I mean, my budget is salary, heat, lights, and that's about it, in the cleaning company. So I have no budget from the town for any of programming activities. I have to get very creative, and I am quite creative. So we do awesome stuff, but a lot of it is I'm bartering with, hey, Wingate, can you know, they will put on a program for us, and I let them advertise a little, and then, you know, and then you have the people pay a little bit for the exercise and then use that money to do something else, and it's a juggling game, but.
So can I ask a question in terms of, you're the director on the Council on Aging,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also the Human Service Director.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, by all accounts, those are two separate positions that you.
I only get one paycheck.
Okay.
Unfortunate.
But you're doing two jobs. Like,
Yes.
were there to be an HR here or in another building, would that would take that Human Service Director piece off of you?
No, I am human
Still-
services, not human resources.
Okay.
Human services
So-
helping people in need. Human resources is putting
Okay.
people in jobs and telling them their benefits.
But a Human Service Director is what would lessen your job in terms of, I mean, you're doing two jobs technically. Okay.
Is that common in smaller towns, for example, or is this just by necessity that we've created this combination?
It's pretty common in most towns.
Okay.
I know, like Mansfield, they have, it's sort of the COA director is above, she's sort of in charge of the human service person. And I know in Taunton, the director over there is the director of human services, and she's above the woman who handles the programming for the Council on Aging. So it's all in the same department, but there is usually another person.
So with some staff, additional staff, you can maintain, have both of those, Council on Aging and Human Services. But if you had some staff to say, take some of the Council on Aging planning and day-to-day operations out, you
Right.
could keep those two positions without having to create a whole nother director for Human
Right,
Services.
absolutely. Yep. And I'd miss it if I didn't do it.
Is that how you would like to see it, as, say, for instance, if you were at the top and you were in charge of both of those, say, units, and then you'd have somewhere that you could say, okay, this person's in charge of Human Services, this person's the planning for the Council on Aging, and you could oversee both of them interact? Is that how you'd like to see it done?
Sure. That sounds like fun. We just do so much. I mean, it's,
Was there anything specific that we didn't ask you about that you wanted to discuss with us?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right,
I
I'll
mean,
follow.
I just, it's funny because I was sort of typing up everything I do. Somebody asked me to do that, and I was doing it, and I'm like, wow, I got myself exhausted. I mean, everything from, crisis intervention to plunging the toilet. I mean, I'm a one-woman show over there.
Anybody have any other questions for Ms. Rossi?
Just a few more things. I am Shine
Yes.
certified. That certification needs to be, re-upped every year. I'm very involved with, I'm a voucher writer for the Salvation Army, so that's how I get some discretionary funds to help people in need. I'm also very involved with the St. Vincent de Paul Society in town. That's another source of discretionary fund, not discretionary, where I can access financial support for people in need. I'm a member of the Attleboro Self-Sufficiency Coalition. That's a monthly meeting that all social service agencies get together, and we sort of talk about what we're doing. And it's a great place to network and get information. I'm also a member of the Massachusetts Council on Aging, where we have directors' meetings. What else do I do? I have, every other month, we have meetings with Bristol Elder Services to sort of talk about what they're doing, so how we can best serve our people. I was one of the creators of the Norton Energy Fund, so this is back before I was the director. I created a fund to help people with their fuel in the winter, so that's another thing I maintain and fundraise for throughout the year. There's more. Just recently, I became involved with a partnership with the YMCA. I forget what it's the CAR Coalition. The Attleboro YMCA did a study of needs in the area, and one of the things that they determined was that transportation is an issue for people who are struggling, and I said, I'm from Norton, I totally understand that. Where our low-income residents are, there's no public transportation, so if you're from, maybe the Norton Glen, or if you're from Jacobs Way, there's no buses that go out there. Jacobs Way, you're pretty much on an island out there, and I've been advocating, even before I had this position, to have the transportation, have the bus go down at least to the end, to the Easton line. But anyways, that never happened. So anyways, we started this program called CAR. It's called Community Access to Rides, and we had some grant funding to start it. Right now, I'm doing a lot of fundraising to try to keep it going, but what it does, it uses Uber as a platform to provide emergency rides on demand. So that's another thing that I'm sort of fundraising for, coordinating, scheduling rides, and I think that's all. I could talk all day. I mean, I could tell you stories. I left these out at one of the town meetings. I can leave it for you. It just sort of talks about some of the charts, the changes I've seen since I've been there in the last 5 years, how many people we've served. I also have some really fancy brochures that my Wheaton College intern put together, and it talks about our mission, some of the programs we have for all people, some of the programs we have for seniors, and then the back page, it has all the human service stuff we do, financial assistance, health and wellness, housing, food, blah, blah, blah. So you guys can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's all.
Okay, if you want to give those
Any
to...
questions? Comments, concerns?
Thank you. Answered mine.
Thank you very much.
You have a lot going on.
I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Will you set that machine that cuts the bushes to cut down the bushes?
And while I'm sitting here.
Sure, no worries.
To this, she can't say no. That's right. Good for her. Smart woman.
So I will leave.
You can give that to, if you can give it to Sandy? That'd be great. She'll scan it and put it on our...
Scratch notes on there. That's the, that is the county. Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Beth, we appreciate your time. Mr. Govea,
Yeah.
come talk with us. How are you this evening? I'm well, how are you?
Good.
Again, thank you for coming, we appreciate it, and thanks for being patient while we got through everyone else as well. If anybody doesn't know, you shouldn't be here, probably. Bill is the town moderator, which is an elected position, and he is responsible for appointing FinCom. And why don't we just start with just a brief explanation of the responsibility of the moderator, just for...
The town moderator is basically the person who runs town meeting. Most of it is governed in state statutes. The moderator is, one of the least busy but most powerful positions in a town as it relates to town meeting. The moderator is given wide discretion in running the meeting. Our particular town meeting, by vote of the townspeople, is run by something called town meeting time. A lot of people think it's Robert's Rules, but it's not. It's town meeting time. The moderator gets to run the town meeting. Once the gavel falls, then it's the moderator. Before town meeting belongs to the Board of Selectmen, basically before it starts, and then once it starts, it belongs to the moderator. You decide who's speaking. You keep order at the meeting. You you decide whether amendments to articles are within the scope of that article. A lot of the business part falls to the, to the moderator. It's, it's really, it's simple, but it's complex. I mean, you have to know the rules, you have to understand it. It's something more that you have to experience more. If you go to a book and try to learn how to be a moderator, you're going to be there a while. It's not the easiest thing. I did it I've been going to town meetings for 45 years, so you just learn. I belong to the Massachusetts Moderators Association. If you ever want to fall asleep, just come to a meeting of the Massachusetts Moderators Association, where I'm one of the young guys. It's just basically the most important thing a moderator does, in my opinion, is appoint the Finance Committee. That is what I pay the most attention to, and what I take probably more seriously than anything else. And I know you guys have had some discussion. I know some town officials have come before you to talk about that part of it and the possibility of changing the way the Finance Committee is appointed. And that's perfectly fair. I don't take any offense at that. I think it's good to look at everything. And in a lot of towns, in some towns, the Finance Committee is elected. In other towns, it's appointed by a combination of officials. There's all kinds of ways to do it. I will tell you that while I certainly don't mind anybody looking at it, I think the ideas that I've heard of the Finance Committee being appointed by, say, I think it was some members appointed by the Board of Selectmen, some members appointed by the Planning Board. I forget if there are others involved. I don't think that's a good idea. I think whether I'm the moderator or someone else is the moderator, I think it's a really good idea to have the moderator appoint the Finance Committee. The reason being that if you just think about it in common sense, the Finance Committee is the objective board that reviews every bit of business that has to come before town meeting. The Finance Committee doesn't have a lot of power. It doesn't make final decisions. It just either recommends something or doesn't recommend something. So when you're the objective board giving the people guidance on what they should do or not do, and then they're free to follow your advice or not follow your advice. Right now, the moderator appoints. If you think about it, I know a lot of you have been to town meeting. Have you ever seen a moderator sponsor an article or argue an article, put forth an article that affects that? I mean, I've only seen it once in 45 years, and that was when Joe Yell, the moderator who appointed me to the Finance Committee years ago, got the town to adopt town meeting time. Other than that, in 45 years, I've never seen a moderator have a stake in an article that was put forth. If you have articles, it's not uncommon at all for the Board of Selectmen to formulate and promote and put articles on the warrant that they want passed. It's not unusual at all. Matter of fact, it's part of their job for the planning board to do the same thing. They have articles that, that they have to put on. And that gives them a vested interest of types, whether it be political, practical, whatever kind of vested interest you have in that. And the idea that you would take the appointing authority away from a position that doesn't have that and then give it to people who do just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. In fact, it seems to go in the opposite direction of what you want. Plus, I think the Finance Committee is just my opinion. But the Finance Committee, over my 45 years in government, has consistently over that time been the best and most consistent committee in the entire town. It has its moments. It's not perfect. It's, we've had, the FinCom's had good years and bad years. But there's so many things that need to be fixed in this town. That just simply isn't one of them. That's looking for, that's a solution in search of a problem. One thing I will tell you as you move forward, you may, if you decided to keep a form of government that had a Finance Committee, you might want to try changing the title, because it's really not a Finance Committee. It's, for instance, in Foxborough and other towns, they call their version of the Finance Committee the Advisory Committee. And, too many people in town think that the Finance Committee is only involved in finances. That's not true. The Finance Committee makes recommendations on zoning articles, it makes recommendations on bylaw changes, it makes recommendations on everything. So a more accurate term is really to call it the Advisory Committee, because then people don't expect that the Finance Committee is in charge of the books, you know, I mean, they're not, that's not their job. So if you get to that point, I would, you know, recommend that might be something that you would want to do.
Can you just tell us how long have you been moderator for the town?
In April, that'll be the end of 12 years. So I'm in my 12th year as moderator. And before that, I spent 15 years in a couple different shifts on the Finance Committee. I was elected 3 times to the Board of Selectmen. I spent 5 years on the Cable Committee. I've served on town manager search committees. I've served on charter review committees. I've served on a town government study committee. I've done probably a lot of other things. I laughed when I heard poor Kathy say, sometimes people blame me for something. I've experienced that once or twice. It's not unusual, but I'm trying to limit my talk now to the moderator's position.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's as far as the moderator's position goes, you run the meeting. It doesn't matter whether what else is going on. You run the meeting and you run it the way you're supposed to. I've been criticized over the years. You let someone talk. You let someone didn't talk. People tell me I shouldn't recognize Keith because he's going to move the question. I always say sometimes Keith speaks to the question. You don't prejudge what people do. You just have to. It's a really big part of being moderator is not really caring all that much what people think about you and worry about you, and that probably comes with age and a certain stubbornness. But it's tough. I worry that I mean, even though I've had a lot of great moderators before me, Gene Boyle and Joe Yell, and people who were just really good at it. And I'm sure that when I stop being moderator, if town meeting continues, there'll be other good people who step up and run it. But there's not a lot of people who have experience at running a town meeting. It's not that easy, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I still screw it up. I make mistakes, I do things wrong, and you have to really watch yourself. The hardest part about being a moderator is at the town meeting is watching the changing crowd and trying to deal with the fact that people don't understand. I mean, if it's the same people coming year after year, they understand, but other people don't understand. You try explaining to someone, what do I have to do to get this law passed? Well, you got to do this, you got to do that. Then you got to come to a gym on a Monday night, and you got to stand up on cable TV, and you got to explain, and they look at you like, you're making this up. What are you crazy? This is nuts. On the last thing on just the moderator, on the Finance Committee, it's always a challenge appointing people to the Finance Committee. I look at it, my job is to keep the committee diverse in a lot of different ways. Diverse by gender, diverse by age, diverse by experience. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't think it's my job, and I don't really try to keep it diverse by local political views or national political views. I don't point liberals over conservatives or Republicans over Democrats. I don't ask people, where they stand on controversial local issues. I ask them what experience they have in dealing with it. I ask them what they understand. I try to assess their ability to reason, their ability to be objective. I don't care what positions they've taken before, or all those things. I listen to them, and I try to judge that way. No matter, if you have a choice and you appoint one person and you don't appoint 3 or 4 other people, there are going to be people who, aren't happy with you and think that you passed somebody up and did all that, and that's okay. That's normal. But for most of my time in my now almost 12 years, I haven't really had to make that many choices because most of the time, there's not people knocking down your door. There are people on this board who have applied for the FinCom in the past, and I haven't been able to appoint for various reasons, who would be great FinCom members. But it's what it's just how you have to come about it. I would strongly urge that you keep it with the moderator, and that way, if there's a bad finance committee, then people can also hold the moderator responsible and elect or unelect that person.
I meant to do a little bit of research before I came in on this specific question. Is moderator an elected position in every town?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, moderate, whether it's an RTM or an open town meeting, moderator is an elected position.
Okay.
Moderator is one of the highly prized pieces of democracy that people keep to, and you go to a Massachusetts Moderators Association meeting, there probably won't be more than one other, maybe other than me, that might tell you that town meeting is not the best way to go. They're completely devoted to it, and you have to be. I love town meeting. I think it's great. I think it's, otherwise I wouldn't have been going for 45 years. But that doesn't mean I have to think it's the best form of government for us.
Does the moderator have any support staff?
No.
No.
I
You have access to town council, though.
Yeah, although it's been a little bit unclear. I try not to contact town council without going through the town manager. I just think that's sort of professional courtesy that, you really just shouldn't run to town council. Of course, our town council was town council when I was a selectman, so I know her, and I know
Yep.
a lot of the lawyers that work there, so, but, yeah, I don't have a salary. I don't have any expenses. I pay my own dues to the Moderators Association. I pay my own travel and my own registration fees when I go to the conference. I buy my own stationery and my own envelopes. Haven't really spent a whole lot on stationery and envelopes over the years, but yeah, there's no remuneration at all.
Do you have access to everything that you need in order to do your job well?
You don't need much. There are things that I can get away with because I've been around a long time that other people might have trouble with. For instance, the selectmen usually inform me when the day of the town meeting is going to be. Kind of wish that every once in a while they'd say, hey, what do you think? We're thinking about having it on this day. Since you're going to run it, you think But that's totally up to them. That's okay. I don't mind that so much. Things I do mind is I usually don't get the list of motions for town meeting, which in the end, I'm responsible for determining if the motion is okay to go ahead and be moved. I usually get it the morning of the meeting. Okay, that's just terrible. That's just awful. And I'm not blaming anybody for it. I think everybody's running around, everybody's trying to do their best, everybody's short-staffed, everybody's, but, if I make a mistake and allow a motion or don't read a motion right or allow something to go on, I'm going to get blamed, and I'm seeing this thing less than 24 hours before God knows how many hundreds or dozens of people are going to vote on it. That should be done a lot better, and I've had that conversation with the selectmen and with the town manager, and if you had a new moderator who was just getting his or her feet wet in it, that would be really difficult for them to get information that late.
You mentioned that you were a member of the Mass Moderators Association, and actually you had made reference to it in the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night, one of the trends in particular that you had heard about. But if you could talk to some of the other trends, whether it's just, towns taking it on or regulatory issues that are forcing those changes, if you could address some of those for the commission.
Well, the Moderators Association is, basically it's a place where we go and we talk about how we run the meetings. And I've learned a lot, mostly just from talking to the other moderators. hey, I had this happen to me, hey, you know, that happened to me, and you know how I handled it? I handled it this way, and we had this problem where we had, you know, and you just learn. You learn from the experience of you know, talking. It's much better to sit in a room full of moderators and listen to their experience than it is trying to flip through a book and trying to read and understand the rules. When you hear it explained to you, now you're like, okay, that's, you know, so that's really valuable. It's not the Mass Moderators Association is not an overly active group. They have sponsored legislation in the past. They were basically, you know, they're responsible for the legislation that, you know, if there's a major snowstorm on the day of town meeting, which we've had, you couldn't just cancel the meeting. The moderator has to physically go to the meeting and make some kind of declaration or have somebody vote or do something, especially since we have a 0 quorum. So, you know, theoretically in a snowstorm, 2 people show up and can vote, you know, whatever they want. So they got a law passed to allow for you not have to go, to take certain steps and be able to call off the meeting. They're working right now. They study a lot of different things. They're working right now on coming up with a recommendation for remote participation in town meeting, which I can't even begin to contemplate how that's going to work, or how that would work. But you know, as more boards have remote participation, and I can understand on that level why that becomes, you know, more important for a regular board. But then, you know, people at town meetings say, well, I'm a legislator, I'm a town meeting voter, why can't I do it? The biggest question I get asked as moderator is, why can't I just vote? Why do I have to go? Why do I have to sit there? Why can't you just send me something and I can vote yes or no on it? And my answer to them is, because this is not a spectator sport. This is an involvement. You're supposed to be there and be part of the discussion. You're supposed to be listening. That's the difference between a town meeting and election. My feeling is, if you're remote participating in a town meeting, it's an election. It's not a discussion. The whole idea of town meeting, the whole genesis of town meeting, is a discussion of members of a community on what should be done. If you eliminate that, what's the point? What's the point of town meeting? So they work on things like that. They also they are responsible for the printing of the book Town Meeting Time, which is what we're run by. They put out videos to show how representative town meetings run and how open town meetings run. They hold conferences. Lauren Goldberg, our town council, has been a speaker at many of our meetings and given a lot of good advice and things. So that they're active in that way.
The remote participation in town meeting, was there a delineation between open town meeting and representative town meeting?
It's at the very early stages. They've got a committee. It used to be the 2020 committee. Now it's the 2040 committee, as 2020 got dangerously close. And they're really at the very beginning stages of discussing it. I don't think there's any plan. We have our annual conference is coming up November 1st, so I might know more about it after that.
Okay.
Somehow, our conference is in Sturbridge, Mass, at the Sturbridge Village, which just kind of lends to that whole age thing going on with the moderators. But
So while we're on the topic of the RTM, like, how would that change your job as moderator, like for the actual meetings of having as an RTM? Would it make you simpler? Would it make it more streamlined? Or do you think you would have more problems trying to keep it all in?
I think from a moderator's standpoint, I'm differentiating now between what I think is better for the town and what would be easier as a moderator.
Just strictly as moderator.
Yeah, as a moderator, running the meeting is a lot easier with an RTM because you know the people, you know who they are, they know you, they know more of the system. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am totally 100% opposed to representative town meeting, but in terms of ease of running it as a moderator, yeah, an RTM would be much better than having God knows who show up and your meeting can go in a totally different direction just depending on who turns out.
Sorry, Laura, I had one more question before we get off.
Please, absolutely.
You had mentioned a few minutes ago that the Mass Moderator Association was working on remote participation legislature. I was just wondering what precipitated that. Are they having attendance issues, much like Norton is? Is that what kind of brought that about?
Yeah, it's that interesting phenomenon with town meeting. Participation is a problem virtually everywhere, and everybody's got a busy schedule. You can't get more, you can't get people out. The same people come out. You try it on weekends. You try it on other days. You do. You change all this stuff. They've held parties. They've had raffles. They give prizes. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff people do. And yet, the concentration always remains on, what can we do to make town meeting work? And at some point, you have to stop and say, it's not how you're doing it, it's the fact that you are doing it. It's the fact that open town meeting, if you're in a small 5,000 person town, maybe you can still make it work. If you're in a town with 19,000 people and a $80 million budget, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. So we keep making changes and we keep saying, I don't know why this doesn't work. We can't get more people to come to town meeting. And then if we're successful and we get more people to come to town meeting, if 10% of our registered voters turned out to a town meeting, we wouldn't know what the hell to do with them. We wouldn't have any place to put them. We got no place to park them. And if they all want to talk, if the normal percentage that talk at a town meeting want to talk at a town meeting with 3,000 people or 5,000 people, you'll be there all day. And the biggest complaint about town meeting is, why can't I vote and why does it go so long?
Yeah.
And it's why can't I talk, and then why couldn't I talk? And we concentrate too much on trying to fix it without sometimes recognizing that maybe it's the problem. The horse and buggy didn't. It was just as effective when it started as it was when it ended. It wasn't that it started working. It was just that there were things that were better.
Right.
And I think that's part of what we're recognizing. But the moderator, if there's no town meeting, there's no moderator. So, I guess if you're a moderators association, you'd want to try to fix the town meeting, because otherwise you're going to be out of a job. You're not going to have anything to do. So
We don't get paid for it, right?
no, but it's, for a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, I'm proud to be the town moderator in the town of Norton. I'm very proud of it. And that's a big deal to a lot of people. And town meeting means something. Town meeting is, it really means something. But there comes a time,
Yeah, okay, thanks.
You've got through a lot of my questions already. Talked a little bit about, I had quite a few questions on what your thoughts were on how FinCom members are chosen, so thank you for that, and
No problem.
got a little bit into the checks and balances of that and the level of autonomy. Related to FinCom, they don't presently have alternates, do they?
No.
Okay.
The FinCom is constructed by town bylaw. It used to be 15 members. Then it got cut down to 11, mainly because it was really hard to find 15 people to serve on the committee. And usually, I have to go begging to get people on the FinCom. I mean, I've literally had to go out and solicit, people when I would post an opening, and I got no one. This last time was highly unusual. Whenever you get periods of extended political involvement, now you get more, people involved. If there's an override being planned and a FinCom opening comes up, you're going to get more, more people applying than you would. So this last time I had one opening, and I actually had 7 people applying for it, which, honestly, God, I didn't know what the heck to do. I mean, I interviewed all 7. I spoke with all of them, and pretty much any one of the 7, would have been a good choice. It really helps if like 3 or 4 of them really stink, and you can just sort of write them off. But that wasn't the case. I had like 7 really good people.
Is that the highest number you've ever had?
Yes, by far.
Okay.
By far. I've had maybe 4 or 5 before, but 7 was highly unusual.
Going,
Save the extras for begging later.
Yeah,
you made reference to it's set by the bylaws. Does it preclude the use of alternates?
It doesn't allow for the use of all, I mean, it doesn't specifically mention them, and in that kind of a case, if you don't mention it, then it doesn't exist.
Okay.
It would be a tough committee to have as alternates. One of the difficult things of being moderator is when you have a FinCom that, you got a member that's ill, or you've got a member that hasn't been showing up. Even though our town charter, I don't think it's ever been used, but our town charter right now has a mechanism by which members of a multi-member body can remove a person from their own body. I mean, you can do that, now. I don't ever remember it being done. But, I've had times when I had to call members and say, hey, you haven't been to a lot of meetings. Is there an issue? You got to kind of step it up here. You got to, you do that. Only once in 11 years have I not reappointed somebody who requested reappointment. That's not because I like the status quo, but it's because I truly believe that it takes 2 to 4 years to really become a good finance committee member. Not that people aren't smart or can't adapt or anything else, but it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to get used to. This is, municipal government is not like business. People keep going, well, appoint a business person. You appoint a business person to a committee like the Finance Committee, and after about 6 months, they're going, what in the world? I always say the difference between business finance and municipal finance is take business finance and eliminate all logic and common sense, and you have municipal finance. The rules are just different. It just doesn't work the same. You can't go. You have to go out to bid for things. If I want to build a garage on my business property, I go get prices. I wheedle. I negotiate. I make the best deal. I get it done. If Keith needs a garage, for the highway department out there, he's got to go through the bidding process. He's got to line it up. There's only going to be certain bidders. They're going to charge him 2.5 times what they would charge me personally, and it's a whole different ballgame. So it takes a while for FinCom. So you have to be patient. You have to really allow FinCom members to have some time to learn.
Laura, can I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
So that example that you just gave of having to call someone, say, hey, look, you haven't been here, or where you been, is that your responsibility as moderator too, to kind of oversee the committee? Or do they just call you and say, look, so-and-so hasn't been showing up?
I guess, it can vary from moderator. There's no set standard.
Okay.
Honestly, my standard is, usually, if I appoint you to the Finance Committee, you then don't hear from me, unless you run into me on the street or at town meeting and say hi. Usually don't hear from me. I don't want to influence your positions. I don't want to look over your shoulder. I don't want to do any of that. I very rarely come to Finance Committee meetings. The only time I come is if something has happened, if there's been some attack on the integrity of the committee and the committee's having a hard time, then I'll come and I'll just say, screw that, I'll stick up for my committee and try to make sure that the right thing gets done. But yeah, behind the scenes, if there's a problem, then you contact a member quietly and you talk to them and you determine. A perfect example, you folks probably know Paul Helmreich, who just retired after 48 years on the FinCom, and Paul and I served together on the FinCom back in the 70s, and he's probably the best public official I've ever met in my life. And Paul told me, Paul's 80-something years old, and he told me quite a few years ago, he said, you know what, he said, you and I know each other, I trust you. He said, if you ever see me, starting to have trouble, if I get into my, later years and you see me having trouble, you just call me up and talk to me and tell me, and we'll do that. And that's kind of, the relationship you need to have with your FinCom members. But, for the most part, I appoint them and then I leave them alone. The chairman of the FinCom occasionally will say, hey, I've got a problem with this member not coming to meetings, then I'll get involved. And a lot of times it's just to say, look, if you don't start coming to meetings, your term is up next year or the year after, I'm going to have to appoint somebody else, or find out what's going on. But that's about the extent of it.
And I just had another question. You've been moderator for 12 years, and then 15 years before you were on FinCom? Is that?
Yeah.
Or in various?
Yeah, I actually got appointed to the FinCom in 1974 when I was 18 years old. I was still a senior in high school.
Wow.
I'd like to think it was just my brilliance that brought him out, but in reality, the moderator was looking, the voting age had just changed to 18, and he was kind of looking for somebody. We had a mock town meeting at the high school, and I played the role of the FinCom chairman. And, 2 days later, the principal called me down to his office and said, I thought I was in trouble, and, said, the moderator's here, wants to know if you want to be on the finance committee. And I've told it a million times, I always say I'm the first FinCom appointment that said, well, I have to go home and ask my mother. But it was, that's how I got involved. I did 7 years, then I was a selectman, and then I came back and did like another 8 years later on, a different.
Yeah, no, that's impressive. My question was, have you ever seen in all your time, which you've had a lot of experience in different roles, have you ever seen FinCom appointed any other way than by the moderator?
Well, not in Norton.
Not in Norton.
I've seen it in other communities. Sometimes it's split in different ways. Sometimes it's elected. Like in Easton, I think it's elected. And that's just it's not a good way to do that at all. I just think you want to put people in. It's sort of like, it's almost like the Supreme Court kind of thing. I wouldn't want to elect people because I want them to feel. I don't want them to make a decision or make a recommendation based on the fact that, oh, gee, I have to get reelected. I want them to make it based on the fact that they can just do this and at least be confident that, I always tell my appointees, I don't care whether I agree with what you do or I disagree with what you do. All that matters is how you do it. I will never not appoint you because you did something that I disagreed with politically, but I will not appoint you if I find out you were somehow underhanded or did something that way.
All right, we're going to get into some of the serious ones now.
There you go.
As it relates to the town government and the way it operates, what do you think that we do right now that we should continue to do? And I think you've already mentioned,
Not much.
you mentioned the moderator should appoint FinCom, so we'll make a note of that.
Yep.
Let's carry on and say, what do you think we should discontinue? And maybe you'll come up with some things we should keep doing in the meeting.
Town meeting. There's no secret, there's no secret that I've been a proponent for years. I brought with me, and I think I had sent you the report from the 2004 Government Study Committee.
Yes, we have it on a shared
Yeah,
drive.
and I've got that. So I've had that. I've been trying to get government changed in Norton for a long time. I wrote the bylaw pre-charter days. I wrote and got passed the bylaw that separated the town clerk's position from the treasurer collector. They used to all three be one position. I wrote and passed and got passed the bylaw that separated the Board of Health from the Board of Selectmen. They were one board in the pre-charter days. Now, afterwards, the charter redefined those and really did it. But I've been trying to change town government for a long time. If town meeting were eliminated, I'd be out of my position. I would, and that's perfectly okay. I love town meeting, but you heard, it was really disturbing to hear the treasurer collector, not disturbing what she said, I'm not blaming her, but when she talked about how people don't have the respect for town employees and don't, understand. Well, if you don't have a professional structure for your municipality, then how can you expect people to understand the professionalism that takes place in town, every day? I've been involved in town government a long time, and I understand what happens. And I understand the people who work for it and what they do. But they're right in that outside, there's a perception that people who work for the town are in public service, that they should somehow automatically want less money and less benefits, and it's a choice they make. You know, how many times do you hear that? It's a choice they make to come in here and because they know they're going to work for less. Well, that makes it seem like town governments only get the inferior employees. Like, if you go to work, it's because you can't cut it on the outside. It's just not true. And what does that say to your employees? What does that, how does that fill them with confidence when you're telling them, well, I don't care if you could make more money on the outside. This is what we're paying you because we're the town and we don't pay anything. You should be thankful to come in here and work for your community and all this stuff. What a bunch of garbage that is. An absolute bunch. We should be trying to attract bright, professional, capable people. And part of the reason why we have a problem doing that sometimes is because we don't have a bright, professional, capable system to put them inside. And that's what we got to fix. Honestly, and I'm not trying to tell you guys your business, at all, but not being shy. If you don't change the form of town government, then nothing else you do matters. All the rest of it is window dressing. It's putting lipstick on that proverbial pig. Town meeting is great, but it's the problem. I want to just read you one quick thing. When I did that report, and it's only a paragraph, when we did that report for the Town Government Study Committee back in 2004, we all submitted stuff in writing to go into that report and to come up with it. And just the last paragraph of what I personally submitted, and I'll give you a copy, it says, change is never easy. By the way, we recommended in that document, as I'm sure you probably read, back in 2004, that we change from open town meeting to a town council, town manager form of government. And it subsequently went on a ballot, and, the idea of pursuing it, and it was passed on a ballot, and then it was stuck in a drawer and ignored. But, so we were making that recommendation. I said, change is never easy. This will not be popular if we attempt to enact it. But it is not our job to choose the popular path. It is our job to suggest what is in the best interest of the majority of citizens in town. If we continue to back open town meeting, a system which by its very nature discourages participation by the majority in order to empower the active minority, we are simply copping out and failing to fulfill, in my opinion, our responsibility. And to me, honestly, I didn't see that until tonight. I hadn't read this in a long time. But I looked back and I said, God, that really encapsulates what the problem is. Town meeting in a town our size now cannot possibly work well. It'll get you by. You'll get your budget done. You'll get your bylaws passed. You'll get, all this stuff, done. But it doesn't make sense. If you don't have enough people, that's a problem. If you have too many people, that's a problem. People, for all their pious, open to democracy, the purest form of democracy. My good friend in the town of Mansfield, who's the town moderator over there, always says, town meeting is the field where the seeds of democracy are planted. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? That's just a bunch of crap. It's like, we can have a perfect democracy. Our whole democracy in this country is built on representative government. I mean, you can argue certainly how that works, but still, it's, we don't have, the United States does not have a big town meeting where everybody comes and decides what's going to happen, because it's not practical. And the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, people don't care about town meeting in Norton. Now, you can argue all you want, and there'll be people who will jump up and say, what are you talking about? I've been going for years and years. And I say, yes, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the 98% who don't come. I'm willing to bet that 75% of the registered voters in the town of Norton have never been to a town meeting. I don't have any proof to back that up, except 45 years of experience. If you have a system where 98% or more of the participants who are supposed to be participating in that system regularly don't show up, then maybe there's something wrong with that system. Instead of blaming the 98% and thinking that we should somehow be able to convert all the 98% into believing what the 2% believe, maybe we should give that 98% a little more, a little more oomph. Maybe we should start understanding that we need to look at what they need to do. People love town meeting when something's happening in their neighborhood. When they have to worry about a zoning law, when they have to worry about something like that, because I get in trouble every time I say this, town meeting is government for the lazy. You get to pick and choose. You get to come when you feel like it and stay home when you don't. And the people who come and turn out because there's something in their neighborhood and we're going to cut the budget here or build the budget here or do whatever, they come out and they vote that night for that project. And they don't worry how it's going to affect the operation down the road. That's left for all the people who are left, for the selectmen and the town manager and others. And when you've got an $80 or $100 million operation, and the final decision is being made by whoever shows up, that's reckless, that's irresponsible, and it's stupid. It's just plain stupid. Now, I know headlines, moderator calls town meeting stupid. I'm not calling town meeting stupid. Thank God for the people who have turned out over the years for town meeting. I mean, thank God for that. If they didn't do it, then who knows where we'd be. And I really believe that town meeting, for the most part, does the right thing. But it doesn't have the understanding. It doesn't have the background. It can change. You got to understand, our town meetings used to go, the annual town meeting was probably 4 or 5 nights. You'd have it on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Monday and a Wednesday and then maybe another Monday. And going through the budget article used to take 2 or 3 nights just to do that. And you'd have say it was a school department, just to pick one, you'd discuss it for 2 hours on Monday night when you got to it. And then it would get to be 11 o'clock and someone would adjourn the meeting. And you'd pick up the argument on Wednesday night. It's a totally different crowd. A totally different crowd. And now everybody who made the arguments before, not everybody is there. Half of them didn't hear the arguments from before. And now you're starting all over again. This is not the way decisions should be made. This is not how you proceed in a government. North Attleboro just made a painful decision. I mean, they went from an open town meeting, from a representative town meeting. Actually, they went from open town meeting years ago to representative town meeting, and now went from representative town meeting to a town council form. It's too early for anybody to really judge how that's going over there. But I've run a business in North Attleboro for 37 years now, and I can tell you from having written, guys know I write columns, and having written about most of the towns around here, I get a pretty good feeling. I know a lot of the town officials. I know the kind of governments that go on. Things are running, I think, much better there. It's going to take a while. There's a big sense of a big parochial sense that they have to get over. But in an open town meeting government, and by the way, representative town meeting is open town meeting with a fixed membership. It's the same thing. It's just you get the same people who come. Representative town meeting in North Attleboro was just god awful.
Do you know how many years they used representative town
I
meeting?
want to say they probably used representative town meeting for between 30 and 40 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
Can you just explain briefly how that 2004 study came about? What happened after and why it got so-called shoved into the drawer and why it never went anywhere else from the vote?
There was a lot of talk about, town meeting at that time was struggling. I mean, think about why we have a 0 quorum. You know why we have a 0 quorum? And I don't, not to answer your question, but we have a 0 quorum because we used to have a quorum of 150, and we always had trouble getting people out. I can't tell you how many town meetings I were at where we only had like 125, 130 people. We really had to get this done, and fire department would set off the tone, to call all the guys out, and, the stations would empty, people would come out, everybody would call out, and we'd get, we'd just barely get 150 people in. Once we, the late moderator, Gene Boyle, who was a great moderator, came up with the idea of having a zero quorum. And part of it, although he didn't really talk about it publicly, was that nothing inspires people more to go out than not trusting their neighbors. If once you told people, listen, it's a zero quorum, 2 people can go and vote. If you don't go, 12 people could come out and decide the whole school budget or the whole town budget or the whole whatever. And after that, for years, we never had less than 150 people.
Yep.
Because you just can't go wrong trusting people's distrust of town government and each other. But your question was on the committee. The selectmen formed a committee because people were asking about it. And selectmen usually, I'm not talking about this board, this current board, but selectmen generally are a little leery about this because what people in a town think and what those who are likely to vote in a town think are 2 different things. Selectmen don't remain selectmen if they don't really heavily consider the opinions of the people who are likely to vote. You may have 19,000 residents in your town, but if only 1,000 turn out for an average selectmen's election, you've got to worry about what those 1,000 think, because if you don't, you're just going to be another person on the outside looking in when they get. Trust me, I know I've won several elections, but I've lost some elections in town too. So they were a little leery. People were saying, town meeting isn't working, we've got to do something, So they formed a town government study committee. I was on it, along with Paul Helmreich and two people, Lee Tarantino and John Rook, who are now deceased, and another lady who I don't believe is in town anymore. And we met, according to I think it says we met 21 times over basically a year period. And our whole charge and purpose was to discuss recommending, not coming up with a plan like you guys, but just recommending what the form of government should be. And we looked at, when I say we looked at everything, we looked at everything. And by the way, when we came in, first thing we did was take a poll. What does everybody think? What form of government should we have? And at that point, there were 3 for open town meeting, 1 for representative town meeting, and 1 for a town council, town manager form of government. When we got to the end, it was 5-0. But we started talking about it. We looked at open town meeting. We looked at representative town meeting. We looked at town council. We looked at town council with a mayor. We looked at an Australian rules ballot, which is just really fun and interesting. It's used mostly up north where, anything over like $5,000 that's going to be spent or something, you go to a town meeting on a Saturday, you discuss it, everybody hashes it out, everybody talks about it, and then like the following Tuesday, there's an election. And you go and everything that was spending more than $5,000 is on a ballot, and everybody votes on it. And so we even looked at that. We looked at, I believe there were 6 different things. I'd have to read the report again to remember what they were. At the end, we came to the unanimous decision that we needed a town council, town manager form of government. I will tell you, I was the one in the beginning that wanted that in the beginning. But we voted it. We went to the selectmen. Because we were appointed by them. We weren't, elected or anything like that. It was just their appointment. We told them, this is what we think, blah, blah, blah. And they said, okay, thank you. And we said, what are you going to do with this? And they said, we don't really know. And we said, well, we put like over a year's worth of work into this. We'd really like to see something happen. So they said, we'll get back to you. And about a month or 2 later, without ever talking to us again, all of a sudden, we found out one night at the selectmen's meeting, they decided to put it on the upcoming town election as a non-binding referendum question. And the question was just, do you believe that what's recommended generally in the Town Government Study Committee's report should be pursued further? And they did that because they thought, no one's ever going to do that. Everybody loves town meeting. It'll lose, and now we fulfilled our issue. We're not taking any risk because it's non-binding. That'll get us off the hook, and we can go back to business as usual. The only problem was, they put it on the ballot, and it passed. And now they were like, oh my God, what do we do now? So in the end, what they did was, they stuck it in a drawer, they did nothing, and when we pressed them on it, they said, well, if anybody really wants to do it, they're gonna have to get the, 2,000 signatures and, and have a charter commission. And that's why that has sat basically in a drawer and on my computer hard drive for 15 years. Not that I'm bitter about it, mind you, or anything. But yeah, but that's what happened. I have no malice towards town meeting, but how do you take this government seriously? Seriously, I mean, there's so many good people doing their very best in it. I mean, and without them, where the heck would we be? But if you had real structure, if if the employees of this town knew that there was a 9-member council that they could go to, and at least there was some consistency. Those will change. Those faces will change over the years with elections, but at least there's some consistency. You know that you have to convince 5 or 9 or 4 or however many of those you have. That's at least somewhat of a professional, reliable system. Don't leave our town government as where you can run out and just recruit people from a neighborhood to come out and shift the balance. People who are never going to come to another town meeting again. If you want to be taken seriously as a town government, have a serious form of town government.
So, obviously, town council being your primary choice of, not being around the bush anymore, but if you want, how would you see it if you had your way? For instance, would you see 9 members at large? Would you see few at large and few precinct? Or would you just do...
I'm not a big precinct fan, but maybe you have to. I mean, does anybody in Norton really identify by precinct? I bet you Keith's been around long enough, so I bet you 70% don't even know what precinct they're in. My wife used to be a registrar for 25 years, and people who lived in town for 50 years are coming in going, I forget what precinct I'm in. So nobody's going, yay, precinct 1, it just doesn't happen. Neighborhoods, yes. Neighborhoods are important and bind people together. But I'm just not a big fan. But, if that's how it needed to be to make people, think, then if we have 5 precincts, if we had 1 from each precinct and 4 or 6, obviously it's got to be an odd number. I'm not a stickler on size or, I mean, whatever works. It's more that I think you need again, this is just personal opinion, I think you need a strong town manager. I think you need, strong in the meaning the strength in the position, that it has to be written in, to have a lot of authority. I think you need a council. I think you need that council staggered. I don't think the whole council should turn over in any one year. I think the term should be staggered so that you have some continuity. Aside from employees get the shaft in this town regularly, but every once in a while too, they know how to run the system. I mean, they, by the same token, a lot of the really good employees in town get frustrated over what's going. Some of the not so good ones know how to turn people out of town meeting and perpetuate the system that keeps everybody there. I'm not blaming anybody, but my God, you've got to have you've got to have a way. If people understood what Keith does on a daily basis, if they understood the equipment that he has to work with, if they understood the limited amount of manpower that he has or that other people have, our police and fire department are still at dangerous staffing levels. Why are they there? Because people don't trust the government. They don't trust it. They can't see it. They see a board of selectmen, but even that board of selectmen doesn't have direct authority to do a whole heck of a lot. You need people with authority. You need to have those direct lines of authority. You need. I don't know. I was in this building when it was a gym, for a girls' school. I was here when we built it on a $2 million grant that was, you know, that we had to build it. We had to stop plans within 90 days or you were going to lose the grant. So the plans were slapped together in the most haphazard manner that you can possibly understand. I was here before this building was here. I was in the old town hall, which is now the bookstore on Taunton Ave, and the jail and the police station used to be in the basement. You know, we've never built a freestanding town hall with taxpayer money in the 300 and something year history of the town of Norton. And yet all you hear is Norton spends too much. The Norton government it spends too much money. We don't get our money's worth. I say that taxpayers in Norton get more bang for their buck than any other town around here. The amount of services, and we need way more services and better services, but the amount of services that we get for the limited amount of resources that we give the people who provide them is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And, you know, you can't just perpetuate a system where complainers can come and make the major decisions. At some point, you have to have people who are accountable. If you have an 11-member council and 5 of those members are going to vote to raise taxes on something, well, maybe they don't get reelected when they come back next time. But that's okay. They've done their job, and now voters still have a say in who runs their government by electing those people. But when you go into a restaurant, there's a menu. You know, you get to choose. You don't just walk into the restaurant and have them make whatever you feel like, you know, on that given night. You've got to have some accountability. You've got to have some responsibility, and we don't have that. That's our biggest weakness as a town.
One more for you.
Yeah.
Just for, again, in optics of how you would see it, how would you see like a budget advisory committee working within that system? Would you see it appointed by the council? Would you see it appointed by a group of, you know, a split up? How would you, because I still think the town still would need some type of advisory committee. I mean, maybe we wouldn't call it FinCom, but.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what a lot of towns struggle with. And I would talk to the towns that have had success, you know, if you were to go with, say, a town council, you know, town manager format or something like that, I would talk to towns like Franklin, I think, is it Barnstable now, Bridgewater, I think it's East Bridgewater, just went to a council system 4, 5, 6 years ago, and find out how they do it. That's a tricky part, and it's important. I think you hit on a good point. You can't go from one extreme to the other. You can't go from an open town meeting where everybody votes on it to an autocratic situation where just a few small people make all the decisions with no input from anybody. You have to allow access. You have to allow people to be heard and to make recommendations. So yeah, I would think it's important to have some type of an advisory committee, and that's kind of what I was leading up to before when I said even if you kept town meeting, you should change the name of the FinCom to the advisory committee, because you want to make sure that there's a connection. People can still go to their counselor, or all their counselors, but you also want someone kind of looking over their shoulder or having to respond to what they want to do. And by the way, that's the third biggest thing that people say to a town moderator is, well, isn't there a counselor I can call? And I say, well, you can call one of the selectmen. And, well, they're in charge of the police department? Well, no, not really. Well, they're in charge of the highway? No, not really. They kind of, try explaining that to somebody from Dorchester who's, just moved in and wants to know how they get something done in their government.
Yes.
So the councilmen, they're gonna take the place of the selectmen.
Yeah, and they'll take the place of the selectmen and town meeting.
Right. So if we did go to councilmen, we'd have to wait to vote the councilmen in, and then they're just selectmen be done. Is that how that would?
Yeah, I know they just did this in North Attleboro, and what happened, I think if I'm remembering correctly, they held the election, but the effective date wasn't for like a few months afterwards or something, or 6. They coincided it so that I think it started on on a certain day. And they wrote the law such that, the selectmen would go away, but there was notice, there was continuity. It wasn't like, okay, if this passes, boom, that day, selectmen are gone and town meeting is gone. It continued, because I remember had a big deal of the last town meeting, which was after the charter had already been voted, and the last selectmen's meeting. And I think 2 or 3, I forget if it's 2 or 3 of the selectmen wound up being elected to the council. So it wasn't just bam, chop it off and start. There was oversight.
Some of our charges have been going over. Seems like the council, they get paid something, they get something.
Yep.
It doesn't really say what they're getting, but I don't know if it's insurance. That's something we should probably look at. When you get someone qualified, not everybody wants to come out of work, become a councilman at night.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, Keith, and when I was a selectman in the 80s, God, am I old, but in those days, we got paid as a selectman. It was huge. We got $600 a year. It was $50 a month, and they took taxes out of it, so you got a check like for $43.
Insurance too, right?
Well, and that's what happened. Eventually, I never collected insurance, but eventually somebody figured out that if you got paid $1 by the town, you were then eligible for health insurance, even though you had to pay your share, but you were paying, at the time, the town paid 75%. So you were only paying 25%. So when that happened, all of a sudden, town officials who got a stipend, maybe they only got paid $100. The moderator used to get $100, but that allowed that position to then apply for health insurance. And so that position you were paying for $100 was then costing you thousands and thousands of dollars a year for health insurance. So that was something else I was involved in. We passed an article that eliminated all stipends. So now nobody got it. That's why the selectmen aren't paid today. That's why the moderator doesn't get anything. Because theoretically, if I lost my job and I was getting paid $1, I could go to the town and collect health insurance. But personal opinion again, and it's in that report too. We talked about maybe having to pay people because it's a big job. You're talking about, like I said, this is an $80-100 million town. You got to spend a fair amount of time doing that. And frankly, I'm not sure I want somebody who's got no other interest in this, and not getting paid in any way doing it, because I'm human. In the back of my mind, I'm going to wonder, wow, I know I'm stupid for doing this kind of stuff, but why are they doing it? It's like, not a lot. Not enough to be a full-time job or even really a good part-time job, but enough to offset the expense that you have when you got to pay for your kids' babysitters while you're at meetings, while you got to, do something. Again, it all boils down to the position gets the amount of respect that you treat it with. If you make it seem unimportant, then everyone else is going to make it seem unimportant. And that's what we've never grasped in this town. We've just never, ever grasped that. We just think everybody should pitch in, all town employees should work for virtually nothing, and eventually everything will come out, okay, and cows will eat the grass, and, we'll worry about the cemetery space later, and we'll do all this stuff, and I've seen it, I've lived it, I've been through this whole thing. We can't do that anymore. I've talked about it before, but the thing, and I think I told your committee, I won't spend any more time on it, but when my son and my grandkids moved out of Norton because they didn't have faith in the town anymore. They didn't think the schools were being supported. They didn't think the fire was being supported. They didn't think the police was being supported. They didn't want to live in a town that didn't have pride and support itself. And that killed me. That just literally killed me. Tore my heart out. When my oldest grandson left the school system, my father graduated from Norton High, I graduated from Norton High, my kids, both my sons graduated from Norton High, just absolutely killed me. But, that's what happens. And we've come a long way from the town that was 5,000 people when I was growing up, that everybody, most of the people worked in town and everybody did all this stuff, and we didn't have $1 million homes. We did stupid things, like we said, let's increase the lot size, because if we increase the lot size, then, we'll have less homes, and we'll there'll be less people moving in, and we'll save money and all this. Well, what that did, you had, 80,000, 100,000 square foot lots. So in order to make it worthwhile, builders had to build bigger houses, so it drove the housing values up, and you priced certain people out of your community. And then people move in, and then you got people, I'll never forget Howard Baker standing up at town meeting going, oh, we've got to approve this article to allow farm animals on small lots in the Grove. Next thing you know, we'll be citified. And it's what happens. Here we are. We've got to make changes. And one of the things that people will tell you, and I know they've already told you, and I know I'm not telling you anything you're not aware of, this is not the time to settle. This is not the time to do things somewhat in stages. We've been going through this. I was here when the first charter was voted on in the 70s, and it took a couple times for us to get a charter. It was not a pretty system, but what we need in this town more than anything else is leadership. We need someone to step up and say, this is what we should do. And even if we wind up not doing it, until someone steps up and says, this is what we should have, this is what we should do, we believe in it, and this is it. I don't care what's politically viable. I don't care, what, I think I've demonstrated that through most of my career here, but unless you step up and offer something, we're going to keep going down the same road. And maybe you offer it, and maybe it gets defeated. My words to you would be, don't design something that can win. Design something that can accomplish something, that can make a difference. Because if you don't do that, then even if you win, you lose. So I'm 63 years old. You guys are pretty much my last hope here. I'm really hoping that at some point, we start to move and we start to change, and this is a great town, and it's full of great people.
Like me.
Like Peter. And if we can just give them, help them understand, I don't want to be the town that's run by the people who slam on the desk and say we can't spend anything and we can't do anything and we can't afford this and we can't afford that. Don't get me wrong, there's a place, and there are things we can't afford and things we should do and things we shouldn't do. But I just had my 45th class reunion. My wife and I both graduated 45 years from Norton High. And I looked around as we were at Bruce Rich's house the other day, and I said, look at all the people who still live in the area, who still live in town. There are a bunch of us. We only had 99 kids in our class, and that was 45 years ago. We were the first class to graduate from what's currently the Norton High School. My wife's father was the vice chairman of the building committee that built that school. So I'm about as invested as you can possibly be in this town. My old line is, I grew up here, I'm going to die here, just not soon enough for some people. We need to change. We need to do better. We can do better. We just don't understand how. People are afraid of what they don't understand, and they cling to what they do. And people cling to open town meeting because they know in the end they cannot pay attention all year long. But they can gather up their friends, they can go to that town meeting, and they can vote no or yes or whatever the appropriate thing is, and they can accomplish what they want. I understand there's value in that. I understand maybe that's democracy for some. It's not conducive to good government and a strong community.
Laura?
Yes.
Can I request that the report that Bill brought today be put in Dropbox so we can all see it?
I think it's there.
Oh, I haven't been able to find it. I just checked again, and I don't see it.
I have it in my Dropbox, so if you need it, I'll be glad to
I can't get it.
send it over.
That's a different issue.
Yeah, I've checked a couple times, and I haven't found it, so I think it would be a good reference for this committee.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Bill? Anything
The ones I had.
Yeah. I think we covered it, but was there anything I didn't ask that you want to bring up?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay. We thank you very much for your time this evening. It was
Thank
very
you.
much appreciated.
Thank you, and I appreciate, maybe more than most, but I appreciate what you're going through, what it takes, and the time you're doing. And regardless of what you do and what you come up with and what you recommend, thank you. So,
Thank you.
thanks. We'll see ya. I get to work.
You're free to stay if you'd like.
Yeah, I know, but I'm pretty sure there's dinner waiting somewhere.
All right.
I'm not a late dinner at all.
Okay. Going back to the agenda, let's review the meeting minutes of Monday, September 9th. If anybody has any questions, comments.
Carrie, it's in the, in that history document that I made,
Yep,
there's a link to it.
there's a link.
Yeah,
okay.
but I'll
Okay.
put the actual document.
That would be
Yours-
great. It's under meeting documents, I think.
History of Thames?
History, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
We all set on the minutes?
Yes.
All right, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes of Monday, September 9th.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed, unanimous. All right, I don't think we have any admin items, unless anybody has anything they'd like to bring up.
I had, just wanted to bring up, I ended up sending an email to the Sun Chronicle, to Mr. Peterson. He is going to do his best to try to get any information about our survey into Sun Chronicle.
Right.
When that doesn't happen, it's kind of going to be on him, but he said he would try his best to take care of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Yes, sorry.
Ralph Stefanelli, he got me in the hallway, and he asked to come to one of our meetings.
Sure. Absolutely. And he can come to any of them.
That's what I told him, I said, it's open,
Yeah.
well, I want to be invited, so.
Which board does he sit on?
Housing, he was supposed to be invited by Bob Salvo.
But what?
Bob Salvo was supposed to extend the invitation
Okay.
for housing.
All right. If you see him again, just let him know that the Housing Authority was invited to come, and Bob should have extended that invitation to all the members. And he's more than welcome to come at any meeting. We'd be happy to have him.
Thank you.
Okay. Peter, do you have any comments?
Nope, no comment.
All right, excellent. Unless anybody has an issue, I'm going to jump around a little bit, and we'll do the Amherst Charter at the end.
Sure.
Okay. Just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, on the fall town meeting, there are 2 charter amendments that are under discussion for the select board. I don't think they've voted on them yet, but they have actually been the one that put them on the warrant. Neither one of them are terribly material. It has to just do with name changing. So the Board of Selectmen, they're proposing to call it the Select Board, and the Industrial Development Commission would be then known as the Economic Development Commission. And also, just so you're aware, on the special town meeting, there is a warrant article that will, unless they vote otherwise, they're going to bring up for a vote, voting on Saturday for town elections, which is actually not in the charter, but it's in the bylaws, so it could be something we have addressed at some point, but
Just the elections, correct?
yes, just town elections, yeah. Just so everybody is aware.
And will that address the location of these sections as well, moving to the middle school?
From what I understand, I don't think the location is actually addressed either in the bylaw or the charter.
I wasn't sure.
I believe
Yep.
it's the logistics thing between schools and the town clerk, if I'm not mistaken, depending on what the availability is.
Okay, so we've covered that. Upcoming interviews. Sandy gave us a new update. Anything? Are you still having problems with anybody, Sandy?
No, I'm just still waiting for, I just heard back from just today from, what's the one, Cultural Council, that they're gonna bring it up at their next meeting.
Okay.
So I've heard back from almost everybody. And then I'm just waiting to schedule a couple of them.
Okay. Actually, just one admin item. I put our meeting dates on the calendar for the Board of Selectmen run, but I noticed I think it's Planning Board, got in on November 18th. So we'll have to find an alternative space for that night. I'll call the library, see if they can accommodate us.
Do we want to just come up with a set schedule on who we're going to take first on this now, or are we just going to do it, wing it by the day? Because my suggestion would be is putting the school committee last, because I believe we're going to have the most probably questions for them.
I would agree.
These other three are probably pretty straightforward and shouldn't take too long.
Yep. My recommendation would probably be the Canoe River Aquifer Advisory Commission.
We've
I
already
could go either way on Council on Aging and
Yeah, we
Conservation.
spoke to both of the, in Conservation and Council on Aging, obviously, for the directors.
Yep.
So, I mean, either that one doesn't matter, I think. So it'd be 1, 2, just do 1, 2 as a Conservation Commission, 3 as a Council on Aging, and then leave School Committee at last.
Yep.
If anyone's against that. I just believe I'm gonna, I mean, I know personally I have more
I'm
questions.
thinking, I'm pretty sure, originally they weren't supposed to have a meeting the same night as ours,
Who?
Conservation.
Okay.
But now I think they are, so we might want to bump them to last, so that they can calm down after their meeting.
Okay.
Makes more sense. So we'll do Canoe River Aquafile, Council on Aging, School Committee, and then Conservation for last.
That works.
Okay.
Okay. Are we going to need December 16th?
Probably, I mean, it's for like the stragglers.
Okay.
Nobody's picking it as their first choice. If it's too close to the holidays or what.
I think I put the wrong dates in for December now that I'm looking at it on the calendar. I did the 9th and the 23rd. Remind me to fix those, please. We'll just be meeting the whole month of December. Okay. Did you have any luck scheduling or talking to the MMA?
Yes,
I
November
actually forgot what dates we had
7th.
decided.
What's that?
What dates had we?
We said either November 7th or October 23rd, maybe? What's in the minutes? But they said either one's fine, so I chose November 7th, since that was our first choice.
Okay,
No, 28th was the second. October 28th was our other choice.
okay. So I will make a call to Lauren and see if she can, hopefully that night works for her, and if not, I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And we can choose the other date. What was the alternate date?
October 28th?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. The survey. Last I checked, which was this morning, we had 105 responses. The town clerk, Lucia, was very nice about making a post for us, and we got an immediate bump in that. As soon as it got posted, we went up by about 20 just that day. It was great. I had been thinking about doing another Norton Alerts reminder, but I'm kind of concerned with the Triple E spring and kind of getting diluted with all of the messages that are coming from the Board of Health. So if we waited a week or so, hopefully that crisis is passed by and,
I would agree with that.
okay. Kevin's already talked about talking to the Sun Chronicle. And I think that's it. All right, remote participation. I tried so hard. When the agenda for the Board of Selectmen last Thursday came out, remote participation discussion was not on it. So my thought was, if you recall in the last meeting, I said I may have to write a letter. I had started writing it, and my intent was, okay, I'll bring it tonight and show everybody, and send it potentially on behalf of the Charter Commission. And then a revised agenda came out, and remote participation was on it for last Thursday. So I made an executive decision, I did run it by Kevin, and sent it in a personal capacity, demonstrating a lot of the reasons why the Charter Commission in particular would like it, but stating our case, and sent that to the Board of Selectmen and to the town manager. It did come up for discussion again in the meeting, and they have chosen to table it once more. I guess from what I understand, it actually has to be posted on the agenda as discuss and vote on remote participation, so I guess even if it had been finalized on Thursday, they couldn't technically vote on it. So I am hoping we will have a vote in the affirmative at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. Knock on wood.
Is there any other information they're looking for? Would it help if we all went?
There seem to be a couple of...
I apologize, I wasn't able to.
No,
catch
that's
it.
okay. There are a couple of people on the board who are not necessarily in favor of it specifically for the Board of Selectmen, and that seems to be coloring their position as to whether they should approve it for everybody going forward. I think we made some good inroads, or I made some good inroads on Thursday, and, you know, Renee Deli in particular was also kind of championing our cause, and came up with, you know, quite a few arguments to people's reasoning as to why they may not necessarily be in favor of it. So I'm hopeful that there has been some consideration given to, you know, allowing it, and not everybody has to adopt it. It's not for everybody. You know, I've stated our case that, you know, we are working within a state mandated time constraint, and that we're here because we want to be here, and we want to be heard, and we want to participate. And it's not a mechanism for us to stay home and, you know, just literally dial it in. And that we worked very hard to be here and to get the question on the ballot and to even be meeting on a biweekly basis, and that it's important to us. So I'm hopeful that we've demonstrated at least our desire and have swayed them enough that they'll at least make it available, whether or not, you know, any other board or committee chooses to use it. It's not really for us to say. It's, you know, we have a vested interest in it personally, so.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
I don't think it would hurt for others to come, though, correct? I mean, there's still a lot of question about
Yeah.
whether it will get passed.
Considering at the next meeting that they will be voting, I think it may be more difficult to reject the participation, the remote participation, if, you know, there were a group of us who are firmly in favor and requesting it for months. It may be harder to vote no if we're sitting right in front of them.
Okay.
So it can't hurt, it might help.
I would think having the phone sit right over there
Yeah.
that we can't use.
Can we dial our comments in?
It's a mirage.
Might help.
You
I
can
don't know.
see it, but you can't touch it.
Yeah. I have this like fear that, okay, we finally get it and then we go to use it one night and it's horrible and it doesn't work and we have to scrap the whole thing because the regulations by the Attorney General are very clear that, you know, it has to be very clear. You have to be able to hear everybody. They have to be able to hear you. So if there's any technical issues, we may be dead in the water, but I at least want the opportunity to be able to try it, given the fact that, you know, obviously Dave Heaney is missing tonight, he's missing next Monday. I'm not necessarily certain whether or not he has the time available, given he's traveling for business, to still call in, but there is the possibility. And I know I'm traveling in November, and I've already booked out time in the hopes that we will have remote participation and I can call in, but we'll see. So, all right. Let's see. If I'm not mistaken, I think all we've got is the Amherst Charter. Did I hit everything else? I think so. Okay. Did this one take oh, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. I put it in your packets, it had to do with the survey. So I had talked to Lucia. Lucia did agree that we can put out flyers at the Fall Town meeting. And we had talked about Dave Heaney putting the QR code. I mocked this up, and I want to vote as to whether this is pandering. My thought is if they see a picture of a cute dog sitting at the table when they're checking in, they'll be more likely to grab it and pay attention to it, which is my initial thought. I was going to use the JPEG that the Norton Media Center had put together for us, but I'd look it over. I would look right over it if it was there.
I love this. I love
And his
this.
ear's up, like
Yes.
he's listening, so
Yes.
it's appropriate, yeah, I like it.
And I tried it with my camera and it worked.
It did. I've
I
tried it
learned
a few
something new
times.
today.
Yep. Does anybody feel firmly against cute little puppy? Should we, I literally kind of mocked it up with the dog and the QR code and the "We're all ears," but the body of the flyer itself, you know, I tried to make it as simple as possible and just give some bare bones information. But if anybody has any suggestions or comments on what, if we want to add anything more, take something away, is there any thoughts?
No,
No?
you
Okay.
keep it simple, yeah.
Yep. Oh, I do have one question. Does anybody have, I'm assuming one of the teachers has, if we can save some paper when I print it out, the
Paper cutter?
slice, yeah, the slicing thing?
There used to be one in the hallway over here.
Is there one here?
I have one at work.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have one. I looked. We get a binding machine, but no cutter.
I thought, but
If I could just, if somebody could volunteer just to,
cut 'em.
I'd be happy to do that.
thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's just do a quick vote. Is everybody in favor of this flyer going out to the Fall Town meeting at the registration table?
Aye.
But
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Sorry. Moving on to Amherst. Did this one take anybody else an inordinate amount of time to read?
Huh?
I feel like this one just took me.
It was very
Yes,
lengthy,
this
but
Okay, I was sick for a lot of it. I'm still not great, but it just seemed like it went on forever.
I'll admit the last several pages were about implementation stuff, which I skipped over.
Well, interestingly, I like what they did there, because they did skip that on Watertown, thinking, oh, it's just the transitional stuff, but it turns out a lot of the meat was in there. But Amherst's was even meatier. I mean,
Pretty detailed.
very, very detailed,
Yeah.
and I liked the way they.
Transition dates and all that,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had a lot of questions, again, not really knowing town council form of government very well. I'm hoping once I get the third one under my belt, I'll be a little bit more educated, but I'm almost wondering if we should read a fourth one, just because it's something we're really not altogether familiar with, and it seems to be, even just the differences between Watertown and Amherst were somewhat different substantially in how they,
So when the MMA comes in, are they going to describe the different kinds to us? Because to me, sometimes, and like we've read it, sometimes hearing it is a little bit different and kind of solidifies your understanding of it.
yeah, I don't know. I think the MMA is going to be more here to answer any specific questions that we have.
Not describing them
Well, I
necessarily.
don't know, what's your thoughts? Are they going to do an overview?
They'll give us an overview of the different, each one will talk about their experiences and their
Okay.
forms of government.
It's kind of, they say you learn by the different senses, right? So the more
Right.
senses you involve, the
And I was thinking too of, I don't know, we have a charter for next week, right? We have the.
North Attleboro.
I was just gonna print up whoever is coming, and just so everybody could have them before the meeting. So, right now, I think it's Foxborough and East Bridgewater are the two that I've been talking to, but they were gonna recruit others to join them.
Okay.
what is that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
So that the town managers that are coming, one's from Foxborough, one's from East Bridgewater.
At our next meeting?
No, at the
MMA.
Oh, I was
The
like,
members
what?
of the MMA.
I'm saying I'll try to get as many charters as I
I-
can from those towns to,
Gotcha.
so that you can have them before they come in.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be good, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there seems to be more minutia as I'm going along. In this one, it was the planning board was appointed as opposed to elected. I'm like, oh, that's different. And then, like, we haven't seen that before. And then I went back into all the ones that we've done so far, and there are two that have been appointed as opposed to elected. So it's things you skip the first time through or miss the first time through. Okay, Amherst. Amherst has a population of 37,819 residents, of which 17,683 are registered, which is low in comparison to the others we've seen so far. It's only less than 47%. They have a,
Is that children, is that why, like under 18?
Or students? Is it students too,
I don't know.
in Mass?
Yeah, okay, just curious.
Who might
Yeah.
register there?
That's true, too.
It is one of the lower ones on the list.
Could be registered.
It is very
Your
low.
home base too.
Yeah, if they're students, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so they have a town council form of government, and that's recent, went into effect March of 2018, and they came from representative town meeting form of government. They have 13 town council members. The president is voted on by the council, and they have a strong town manager. And I did find within the, and I made a note, within the charter, the stipend is dictated there. I couldn't find anything on the website as to whether it's been amended since, probably not, it hasn't really been long enough. The council members, regular council members each get $5,000, and the president gets $7,500. Starting in Article 1, did anybody have any comments? Excuse me. Nothing in Article 1. Moving on to Article 2.
Just wanted to point out on Article 2, so just their composition, I kind of spoke to it a little bit when I was speaking of Bill. They have the 13 members, and they have the 3 of them are known to be councils at large, be nominated from the elected by voters, and the other 10 is to be district councils. And I forget what page it's on, they kind of speak about the districts on a later page. I forget what article it's under, but
Oh, it's near the end.
yeah, they explain how they work their districts, but for us, it would be obviously probably by precincts. But I just want to note that they have a kind of a combination. They don't do all district or all council at large. And they also do the term of the office for 2 years. So basically, it's just a revolving thing, there's no carryover.
I'm noting that seems to be common where counselors only go 2 years as opposed to some of the boards that we've seen have been
Yeah, I was
three.
gonna say, I think this is fairly common.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
the size, 13 seemed a little bigger, I thought. Perhaps I know this, but
For
other than that.
30, almost 38,000 people?
Yeah, I'm not arguing, it was just one of the bigger numbers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I thought two from each district maybe was a little, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
don't
loved-
wanna get too far ahead of ourselves.
Did you think two from just each district was a little high?
Yeah, like, what, one from each district, maybe the three at large.
Does anybody know, are the precincts in Norton balanced? In other words, like, is there approximately the same number of people in each precinct?
They're supposed to be.
Yeah, it made reference to it in
They're
the,
supposed to be
By state
drawn
law.
that way, yeah.
yeah.
I wonder how that
They have to review it
This-
after each
How often do
census.
they change? How often do they change?
I think they,
don't know.
there was wording in here that there's a commission that's formed every
It's right after the census.
10 years or 20 years.
It's probably right after the census. I think,
Yeah.
Correct.
Although the town does a census every year, so they could theoretically, do it.
So it's relatively
Times,
balanced.
yeah.
Relatively
Yeah.
balanced.
But it should be balanced.
It was
yeah.
after
Do we
the-
have- Do we have 5
We have 5.
in Norton?
5 precincts.
Yeah, yeah, it was after the census, it said there was a committee formed, and then they would redistrict based on size, population.
The only issue I would say of that, I mean, obviously, it's tough to do because you obviously want the odd numbers, and the full 13 is having, then you have an even, it's catch-22, you have an even election from just the districts. So now you have 10 that are only represented by districts. I know it's tough to do either way, but it's almost like, to me, to have the 13 members and you want it to come into play, you either need to have it all council or large or all district, like, then you don't have that in between.
Well, if you did five,
did
one
one.
from each of the 5 districts, then do 2 council at large, right? Then you still have an odd number.
Yeah, like for us, I mean, I'm just wondering if they use.
Even 4.
Even 4, yeah.
Yeah, you get
That's
9
what I'm saying,
people,
about 9
yeah.
you could do, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a good reason to have at least one person from each district, because certain neighborhoods are going to have, their own issues. and
Unique, yeah.
That maybe an at-large counselor from a more from a more populous neighborhood wouldn't necessarily know about or have a vested interest in. So having a mix of both district and at-large, I think, serves the town.
Yeah,
I
like
agree.
it. I like that idea of precinct.
I like the mix,
But
yeah.
13 is a lot.
And then, well, the
That's a
idea
lot.
of digging into the mix too, I wonder, and I don't, I can't remember, like you all, I agreed it was there's a lot in here, so I feel like I read it a while ago. But my point is, what are the rules and regulations when it comes to the 3 at large? Can they all come from the same district?
Yeah.
They all have to come, so
They
they
could.
they all
Yeah.
can come
Yeah.
from the same district. So
There's
you
no
could-
restriction.
So theoretically, here, you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 members from one district.
So, no, I don't know if it's, I don't remember if it said it in here. I think in Watertown, they specifically said the at-large counselors, so they have to get more signatures for their nomination papers, and I think they specified that they couldn't all come from one district. So by virtue of running for election, you have to make sure that you have support in other districts. So even if you are from that district, so there might be ways to make sure that it's sort of distributed. But that's why I think it's important to have those district counselors, so that you make sure that you at least have one person who's representing the local interests.
Yeah, this one doesn't have that distinction, but you could certainly make it
Yeah.
in your own. You can write it up whatever way you want.
Yeah.
I loved the state of the town address.
I did too.
Yeah.
Just one
So,
more.
because we always are at meetings where we're hashing out and debating stuff, it'd be nice to just have us just, what's the state of the town, what's the condition that we're in, where we need to go, that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I like it's the council president and the town manager.
Yep.
That deliver it jointly.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd like to find out, just going back to 2-1 for a second, the only thing that I'd like to find out, and I think this is probably more of a, speaking to other towns that have this, is how much do they run into the district, the councilmen that have voted in by districts playing politics with each other. So for instance, okay, I need something voted on in my district, I have people bothering me. So I go as a councilman to another councilman in another district, and whether I pander them or whether I do whatever, so they jump on board with me. I want to know how much that goes on in other towns.
I think you can have that any form of
I think-
government.
I think
Well, no, but
by virtue of
what I'm saying with the council at
Right.
large is your a council at large, to me, is you're responsible to all voters. Everybody can vote on you. So if you try to play, in my opinion, if you try to play the games of going back and forth with another district, and if the voters are paying attention, they're gonna say, well, look, I came to you, I asked you, for your opinion on what you're gonna vote on. I'm seeing what you're voting on. Where if these district things, I just wanna, and I don't know this question, but does that come into play with some of these towns, of these districts going back and forth and saying, hey, if you got me on this side for this vote, I'll take care of you and we're gonna go vote on this. I know it's affecting your neighborhood.
Well, I don't think you got anyone to say, yes, we do that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think the town.
I also think if you
the
have
town-
all at-large, any town councilor could have a pet project and need support.
And you could have a neighborhood that doesn't get represented because they have, because they don't have as strong a voter turnout
But-
or something. So do you ignore a particular district altogether if you're all at large because nobody has a vested interest in that?
Right.
But let's just say, for instance, with us, for the precinct, let's say they, geographical lines or whatever, where the streets are made up. You have a precinct that, for instance, doesn't have the projects going on that other precincts do. I'll give you a perfect example of this town. This east side of town, for the last 5 years, and probably for the next 15 years, are gonna see the majority of the projects, because that's where the available land is. So, those, councilmen from those districts, or those councilmen from those districts are going to be in the spotlight, because they're the ones that are gonna be approached by their neighbors, where, let's say if somebody, for instance, in Chartley, where there isn't much land, and they're in that type of precinct, those are where those roads are around there. If they're not getting called by their, constituents or their voters saying, hey, where are you looking out for me? Where I think that if you've got 9 or 13, however many people you go, and they're all at large. then
What if they're all from that one district, though?
But that's what I'm saying, but you got free, but that's what if I'm a voter, okay, and I'm saying, okay, I appreciate the person that's on, by Leonard Street. I understand that the next 5, 10 years for them, 20 years for them are gonna be difficult. There's gonna be a lot of projects going on. I want what's best for the town. I'm voting at the large. I'm not voting or we're gonna be starting to get into this thing where we're voting for one person because that's where all the projects are going on. I just feel like right now, we're so split up in town that there's not equal amount going on, that just, in areas, for us anyway, we're gonna be concentrating on the east side of town so much because that's where the land is, that's where the projects are going on, that's where the issues are. I mean, let's think about it.
I think you're always going to have issues, though. It doesn't have to go.
You always run the risk no matter what from the government
There's
you
always
have.
going to be constituent services that you need to fulfill.
But, okay, but let's just go, and again, this is probably for a discussion for later, but let's just go on the basis of the last 5 years. I mean, where have the majority of the issues that we sit here and argue about in town meeting for the last 5 years?
Money.
No, I'm saying for project-wise, for issues that are actually voted on by the council. So, planning board, issues with changing zoning, projects. I mean, every single one has pretty much been on the east side. I mean, I'll give you the 3 main ones that we've argued about in town meeting, and we've almost had extended town meeting. We've gone Leonard Street, we've gone a billboard, okay? And now we're talking about a 274 East Main. That's all within, 3 miles of each other? I mean, name one project we've argued about in Charlotte in the last 5 years. That's a serious issue that we have to have a concern with when we look at something like this for Norton.
Right, but I don't think we can look out for the town by discriminating against a particular district because we think they're going to have more issues.
I'm not discriminating. No, I'm saying the complete
I think
opposite.
if we had a mix of the districts and at-large, then you eliminate
See, I disagree.
that-
I
that
agree.
problem.
See, I disagree. I see if you have let's just say a 9-person council that is all at large and the entire town has a vote on it, you can say, what's best for 20,000 or 19,500 people? I want you to make the decision for 19,500 people. Where if I'm voting for a district, if I'm from District 1, if I'm in Precinct 1, and I'm gonna say, well, I really don't care what happens in Precinct 5. That's not what I want my people to do in town. The people I want to vote for in town is, what is the best for 19,500 people? Now, are you gonna please everybody? Absolutely not.
But even
that's
if
what
you
I
run
want.
at large, you're still going to be concerned about your neighborhood.
Of course you are.
because
You're naturally
your
gonna-
neighbors know you, and so I think you're going to run into you're going to run into
Okay,
problems
so,
either way.
okay, so for instance, if I'm Precinct 1, okay, and I run for council at large, okay, and there's a project that comes up in Norton on my precinct, and I've got people from my precinct that I know are gonna vote only for me, yet deep down inside, I know that project is good for 19,500 people. Now, it may not be great for the 1,000 people that live in my precinct in this specific neighborhood, but on the whole, it's a good decision for
Then you should
19,500
vote
people.
for the best of the town.
But that's what I'm saying, that's not gonna happen, because now I
But
need to
you're
get
also only
reelected.
one vote out of 9.
Right, you want to vote
understand
overnight,
that,
and if
but now what do-
I saw that person
All right.
not
But
voting
now
was
what do I
best
do?
for
Do
the
I
town.
I think we should table
No, but
this
do I turn to
conversation
you now
for a
and say,
later
hey,
date.
you're gonna fall into my line now? Because I'm gonna help you out next time with that. That's what I'm saying.
If I'm a council person, I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to follow your line.
You may, but we're not talking, we're
always how it
talking,
works.
yeah, it's not how it works.
But that could happen today in any form of government.
I think this is a conversation we should probably, it's an
I think-
important conversation, and it's a
Yeah.
conversation we clearly, will need to get into, but
Right.
maybe tonight is not the,
I agree.
Just to bring up a point, I think
Yeah.
there's, the math of it, right? That's where I'm kind of going to is when you run as a precinct, you could possibly, we have precincts that have way less voters, that people actually vote in town.
Oh,
I think it's not a balance, right? If you look at the numbers of who votes and what precinct they're from, I forget which ones it is, but there are certain precincts that are much less likely to vote.
It's not
So
eligible voters,
potentially-
but actual turnout voters.
Right.
Gotcha.
So I think, there's a few things you want to think about. It's, you want people to have choices. If there's only one person in my precinct to vote for, now I don't have choices, right? You want, you don't want someone winning. Someone could win based on, like a couple hundred votes, and someone else could lose with a lot more because they're in a large versus a precinct. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into it when you look at the reality and logistics of how it actually plays out. I think it sounds nice to say you have this and, that you run either as a precinct or at large, but I think it's definitely a much bigger discussion than just, cut and dry, like it's kind of coming across right now.
I don't want to, I know Keith had a comment, and I don't want to stifle anybody's,
Like
If you wanna-
Ken was talking to everybody, but in Amherst, on page 6, the 2.7 district duties would help out a lot on that, because you'd have everybody talking about this big project here, talking to councilmen, they'd be all the councilmen looking at this. You'd have twice a year, people coming around meeting.
yeah, I did like the concept of that, too. It's kind of a state of the district meetings.
I just think my only point was the only thing I'm gonna say about it is, I agree with what you're saying, that's all. I'm not saying that we have to decide what we're gonna do, is if this is what we decided to go with. All I'm saying is, I just don't think you can say, oh, this is a great idea, because this is how they did it. I think, for us, the way it is set up right now, it's very difficult just to draw a line and go, oh yeah, this is great, let's have it represented by 5 precincts. Because I think our precincts are very out of whack, you know what I mean? And they can be across the board.
Yeah. I
So
think
that all needs to come into play.
Sorry. I think Lauren Goldberg and the MMA in particular may also have some really good insight. We should ask them specifically, if there a reason to do one over the other, are there pros and cons, and then we'll have all the information and can kind of have that in our quiver for when we do get into some discussions. All right, David Renlake's the ones that say, I wonder what brought this up. And mine was 2.3B.
I was going to say, I kind of like the A part,
Yep.
prohibitions.
Well, I did and I didn't, because it seems like
This is a state law, A.
A
A
is,
is a state, so you can't hold 2 paid.
but you also can't go back to your job. So it says,
So it's
you
not-
can't be an employee
You need a 12
of the
month
town
gap.
and a town counselor. And if you resign, you can't go back to your old job for 12 months.
Correct.
Correct.
That is governed by state law.
Yep.
Because you can't have undue influence
Okay.
on the town, so,
But if you resign from town council or you're voted out, I don't understand why that precludes you from going back to your old position.
well, because you can't be appointed to a compensated position, because now you've just left the town council, and now you've got your buddies your former colleagues to appoint you to a position.
So
I think
this is
it's all
appointments,
about-
well, no, because appointment means hiring in this case.
Correct. But people you just sat on the board with are
Oh, I
now.
see.
It's
the-
like
Gave you
the
your job.
lobbying prohibition, so I
Okay.
can't leave the state legislature and then
Got it.
say, hey,
Okay.
I want you to vote on, what my new company
Why not
wants to
just,
do.
why not just make it a part of this article that says that no town employee that's being compensated by the town can run for town council? they're gonna
Because
have
you
both.
can run and then leave the other position.
You just have to leave your position.
Or you can choose not to take compensation, and I think that might also get you around it. So you could still be a town employee, but just only take one pay,
Okay.
is my understanding from my reading of the state law. I went back and looked at the state law.
Yep.
Because of Watertown's provision, the council president was also a member of the board. And there was some question, somebody had raised a question outside of this council about whether that was lawful or not, so that's why I looked at it. I don't just know this stuff off the top.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the interference with the administration was, I don't think we've seen anything like that before, so it's one of those, like, it's here for a reason, something went down.
Yeah.
And there is a definite slant towards, I'll point them out when I see it, but I kept going, oh, I wonder if that relates back to 2.3B. To Keith's point, I like the district meetings made a point that we should, if we were to go that route, look to adopt something
Yeah, I
similar.
like that too.
Yeah.
Sort of accountability. There's another accountability provision later on that I liked.
Yep.
Hold on.
I also liked in 2.7 and a number of places throughout it, I know it's just verbiage, but I like the wording that they used in terms of the purpose is. I like the notion when they're very clear about what the purpose of this article is or what this section is. And they used it quite a few times, and they used it a couple other phrases, I can't find it. But I actually liked the wording. I found it was easy to read and very clear about what the purpose of what they're saying is. So I like the wording there,
I agree.
the use of that.
It makes it easier if something's ambiguous, when you're trying to figure out what it is, yeah.
Exactly, because a lot of it can be
Right.
ambiguous. And so to say the purpose of this is to facilitate two-way communication, okay, thank you.
Right,
There's
right.
nothing wrong with keeping it as simple as possible for people to understand.
Yep.
Yeah. So 2.9D was one of those that I was wondering if it was related to that interference with administration. So if they're not allowed to interfere, but they can have somebody sit on that board in a non-voting, it's almost like you can plant a spy.
Well, and we kind of have that now, where I think the Board of Selectmen are now sort of, they've identified certain people to go attend different meetings, or maybe it's FinCom.
Yes. Yeah.
FinCom is
Yeah,
doing that.
I think it's more to just
Yeah,
keep
just to
abreast
keep-
of
yeah.
what's going on,
Yeah.
because it's hard to follow it all.
It is, it really
Well,
is.
I was looking back at 2.8, as I was reading it, it seemed like there was more mention and more cooperation or more meeting with the school committee and the town council than I've seen in the past. Much more mention of that, more collaboration, I guess, if you would call it. Now, how much collaboration comes out of it, I don't actually know. But I definitely noted that there was more, specified in here that there needed to be some type of collaboration between those boards. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody else picked up on that or thought anything of it, but I definitely like the notion of it.
Yeah, and I wonder if we can talk to somebody in Watertown as well, because their town council president runs as both town council president and school board member.
Okay.
That's, the position is a combined
Yep.
position, and I wonder if they did that for more collaboration and how it's worked. Like, has
you-
it actually
Right.
led to that? I assume that's why they did it. But I thought that was, I thought it was interesting here
Yeah.
too, that there was like, a pointed effort
Yep.
to sort of get that together, because the school department is a department of the town, So,
And we definitely don't see that collaboration here.
no.
I don't think at all, even if
think
we
it's
see it,
been
even if we see it, right, even if we see it in writing, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And Dr. Vada will tell you that too, so,
And he did, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I have a question. And it was in 210C.
Right, to postpone.
Oh, yeah, Watertown had something like this, too.
I was okay with it up until the last sentence, because it says the use of this right to postpone shall have privilege over all of motions and must be raised prior. Once invoked, all debate on the measure shall cease. And my thought is that if you call this into play, you can't talk about it anymore. Doesn't it encourage discussion outside open meeting? If you've basically called off, if you postpone a vote with the intention of swaying another member, which why else would you postpone a vote unless you didn't think you had your numbers? So if you postpone the vote in the hopes of being able to sway somebody, but you can't talk about it,
You can talk to individual members, though. That's not outside open meeting. You just can't have a quorum.
well, it is unless it's serial, in which case, like, I talk to you and then you go talk to Denise and Denise.
But you can talk to me, and then you can talk to Denise, and then you can talk to Jamie, and that doesn't violate open meeting.
Okay,
As long as you are not then telling Jamie what I said.
yeah. I just
and
feel
we're
like it
understanding.
encourages discussion outside.
I can get my district on your district. I mean, it's the same thing we're just talking about. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but this is what this is doing.
Yeah, and I feel like what do they call it, serial communication?
This is exactly what's going on.
That's impossible to.
It really is, but I
It's
do
impossible
think,
to not, and it's impossible to say, you're guilty.
yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing that says I, as a town councilor, can't go talk individually to
Call
members
politics.
to
Yeah.
try to.
But ideally, it should be happening within the context of the meeting.
You can have a debate, but, you know, I don't know.
So what's the point in tabling it?
It literally just stalls it.
Just,
But it also could be to gather more information, or.
I was gonna say, it could be because you need more
Or it
information.
could be that
Yeah.
you didn't know it was coming up, or, you know, it could be for,
Or lobby.
you know, you can only, they do,
So cynical.
they do limit you to, you can only post.
Does anybody not see what goes on? I mean,
I mean, I think,
You can't eliminate politics.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I think particularly
This
here,
is
we hear
encouraging it.
repeatedly that people get things last minute to review.
That I understand,
Right.
but this seems specific. It's on the vote itself that you can stall it. Not
is
necessarily.
stall the actual word? Where are you,
No,
where are you
you're
reading?
objecting to it,
postponed.
you're postponing it.
Yeah.
But you can only use it twice, so it is limiting it. You will eventually have a vote on.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
whatever it is.
times have we postponed things even currently, right? Things that should be simple,
Yes,
right?
yes,
We do it all the time.
yes.
You know, and it could be as simple as, you know, they say postpone, other boards say we're gonna table it for further discussion later.
Right.
So in an extreme example, I can see that, but it could be used routinely as well, when you need to bring somebody in, you know, they weren't available for a particular hearing, and you
I
don't
do
wanna
like,
take a vote.
I do like limiting the postponements, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It makes sense
because you
to
don't wanna
have-
do it.
It makes sense to have it available because quite often in this town in particular, they don't get things to the last minute to review. And so you need time to absorb it and ask questions and dig
Yeah.
a little bit further, but.
For that purpose, I got no issue, but if it's simply to stall, then what I don't understand is why the debate on the measure has to stop. That's my question.
It's the same as, I mean,
I guess you just
tabling
can't
it.
avoid it. If someone's
Yeah.
gonna stall
You
it,
can
you
debate
use
the-
it to
Yeah.
stall it, you can't avoid it.
Right, and if I think,
Yeah.
I'm asking to postpone because I'm not prepared to discuss it, then it's hard to have a discussion, continue the discussion if I'm not
Yeah.
ready to discuss it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it does,
But, I mean-
it's very specific in that
Yeah.
you know, you have to get back to it within 5 days.
Right.
Right.
You know, so,
You can't postpone it
it's
forever.
it's not like you're stalling forever,
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Just long enough.
just long enough to make that phone call.
Are we still in 2?
Yes. Anything else in 2?
Well, I stopped at 214, where it said the Water Commission, the Sewer Commission, and the Public Ways, the town council shall service all of those?
Yep.
So the town council is all of those?
Replaced those,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know,
I
that
don't
seems,
necessarily.
I don't, it
It
seems.
seems a big bite to chew off.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it also seems like, as we talk about the water and the sewer and the issues here and there, like, now you're gonna take these elected officials and then give them,
You won't have anybody complaining about getting somebody to come before you, though.
yeah, I suppose, I suppose.
I guess the only thing that's nice for where we're in is that if you can't find somebody to appoint, if we were to change it to a appointed water sewer, and you can't find qualified individuals, at least you have 9 or 13 or whatever number you went with this, that were paying attention.
They're accountable,
Day in
yeah.
and day out.
Yeah.
And you're also voting, so you basically, you kill two birds with one stone here. People that complain that they want to vote the water and sewer commissioner in, you still get that. Yet you have people that hopefully are paying attention on what's going on in town, the project's coming up. So
Yep.
I can see it both ways of like, this isn't a bad way to lump it all together and be done with it, you know what I mean? But it is a lot of responsibility for people to have, all this responsibility on town stuff and budgets and everything else, and then say, oh, by the way, we have enterprise account
Right.
of $5 million. We want you to
Right.
manage that too.
Isn't
I just think you
the,
don't get the most qualified
is the
people.
Public Ways the same as what we have?
Public Ways is the highway department.
Yeah, and so our Board of Selectmen currently is.
Yes.
Right, is already that right now. So this is only one extra committee, really,
The water
Right.
sewer, you adding the water sewer to
because
it.
they already are the highway, what are they called?
Commissioners.
Right, Commissioners,
The
yeah.
water and the sewer they have a director, they have a superintendent,
Yeah.
they have an assistant superintendent. So right now, we have a superintendent of water
Yeah.
and he's sewer too. I mean, they're like a lot bigger than, the councilmen,
They have more guidance.
they're watching the directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their water sewer is not gonna have a whole lot of power, just like our Board of Selectmen, how often do they actually get involved with the highway? I mean, that's mostly,
They do in the winter.
yeah, but for the most
Most
part,
part of it,
you
yeah.
guys, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a change in the responsibilities, right? Because our Water Sewer Commission has so much power in this town, right?
So are
So if
you
you take
saying-
away that power, then it's not that big of a job, and that's why I think
Well,
that the
basically,
council
in
can
the
do it.
charter, the selectmen can't actually tell me what they want done. They gotta tell the town manager.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
But are you saying in this charter, they're more overseeing directors or assistants that are
Right,
in
they're-
those
yeah.
roles? So they're more overseeing, they're not the actual
Right,
people.
right. They
Or
tell
the
the
people,
directors what
but
to
they're
do.
not the actual people in the position.
I guess it's a good point too, is if you had a DPW director that was an engineer, that was being called to the meetings of the town council saying, this is what we're doing, I'm also managing a $5 million enterprise account or whatever it is at the time. This is what we're trying to do, this is the project you're doing, this is the reason we're
Exactly.
doing it.
Exactly.
And it sounds, it's not that much responsibility to say, now vote on it.
Yeah, it's really about hiring the right people, right?
Yeah.
Anything else in Article 2?
Huh?
Sorry. I was going to say, anything else in Article 2? All right. It took me until Article 3 to realize that a point means higher.
So in 3, I liked in 3.3, this community participation officer whose job it is to recruit people to get involved.
I know.
I loved it too.
Like somebody
I
who
put a
is
heart
like,
next to
you
it.
I think a lot of towns have a hard time recruiting volunteers, and so if you can like dedicate resources, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I pointed that out myself.
Yeah, I did too.
I don't know where that would fall or how you even go about doing it but I thought it was a good.
They're a very strong town manager.
Yes.
With multiple abilities to basically I mean, they can appoint up to temporaries and temporary appointments, multi-member bodies. I mean, they've got a lot of power as a town manager, but obviously there are a lot of responsibility too.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that they, I mean, I understand this happens at other places too, but they basically require them to go to the town council meetings unless you're excused, which is
I think we have that in ours though, too.
I think,
If I'm
I think
not
we have
mistaken.
that he's got to go, but I don't know how strong I don't remember how strong language
Yeah.
is.
I just think if they're gonna be voting on these things and they're gonna come into play, you need to have him there. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you're gonna bounce to the town meeting, you know, it's a difference, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna be aiding, hey, put this on the warrant, that's one thing, but
And I've liked the strong town manager sort of way of doing it, because otherwise, I think, if you're constantly going back to the legislative body, whether it's town council or town meeting to like make or even board of selectmen to make decisions, you're just sort of delaying.
It muddles it.
How things, how fast things get done,
Yeah.
I think if you vest the authority in the town manager, you can get stuff done,
Well, I think it's-
more efficiently.
I think it's a simple, even like what the town manager was talking about, with like making appointments. I mean,
Right.
the town department head hires somebody, it's agreed on by the town manager.
Right.
He's the department head, and then you're waiting these days and have to come to the selectmen.
Yeah, you
And-
might be
and
waiting
the-
2 weeks.
And at this point, like, and when's the last time the selectmen have now, they made this decision all together, the selectmen come in, it's like a,
Yeah.
you know.
They can reject it, right?
But that's,
could,
yeah.
but the thing is, now,
How
it's
they
been
have-
discussed,
right.
it's
Right.
approved on, there's a reason they're doing this, the budget's already kind of planned for it. You're saying make an appointment, to the point where they make the appointment and they waive the 14 days. So, like, we're doing all this,
As long as they pass Cory check, you're all set.
well, yeah, I mean, you're wasting
Yeah.
like almost two other, and almost to the point whereas you can't even have, like what the chief was saying, you can't even have a swearing-in ceremony.
Right.
Because you really don't know if they're gonna be appointed that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, you're waiting, are they going, yeah,
I might
most
have forgotten
likely.
to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, 99%,
vote on it.
99% of the time, well, 99.9% of the time, they'll be appointed. But there is a possibility that they don't, or it doesn't get put on the agenda, and now we've
Yeah.
got everybody here for no reason.
Yeah, even this one here, I noticed when I was reading it, the town manager makes appointments for a lot of town employees, but the board of selectmen has the opportunity to reject it, similar to what we do as well.
Yep.
It just doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Wasting a step.
Correct,
But a town council doesn't have to wait 2 weeks to meet, like, they could make a decision,
right,
sooner,
right.
so, anyway.
Anything else in Article 3?
I did notice in the first part where it says the town manager need not be a resident of the town at the time of appointment, but must establish
Yeah,
residency
yeah.
within 1 year.
Same thing as last week, right?
Again,
And they
I
can
know,
waive
Everyone
it.
has
But then
that.
it just says, unless the town council
Yeah.
shall waive such resident, I just feel like it's a, do it or don't do it, like, I don't really think it should be in there. I think if you're looking to expand your pool for qualified candidates, I don't understand why you insist they live in there. And then
And
if you're
every
gonna
charter
waive it,
has had
if you're gonna
that.
waive it
Yeah.
anyway, I don't
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
why. I
This is the
don't-
third one we've seen where they've got that requirement.
Yeah. I thought that the language in 3.5 was interesting. They say such compensation shall be within the limits of available appropriations, which obviously you have to, it's gonna be in your budget, but I just thought it was interesting that they actually specifically put that in here. And so it's like you could budget nothing and then you get.
We kind of have that, to a point too. I mean, we have ranges where department head should fall in. And they have to adjust those accordingly.
To the
So
budget.
They go to the town meeting and they'll say, we have to adjust such and such a department head because it's been 15 years
Right.
from when we appointed the, you know what I'm saying? So now they gotta fall in that range. Well, that range isn't even close to where, average town would be hiring somebody for X job. I just think if you get a town manager that gets hired in 2019, stays here for 15 years, great town manager, and retires, well, if you go on what the appropriations are from 2019, who are you getting in 2035? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're asking for more every year, but it's whether or not they get it.
Well, that's at the range, that's why I think the
Yeah.
range is like, you're gonna have to adjust that range of where they're at. I mean, you're not gonna start, at the top, but
Right,
you gotta
right.
start within a thing where it's, comparable at least.
Anything else within 3?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, moving on to Article 4, elected offices.
I just had a question, I didn't get a chance to look into it, but I don't know, Oliver Smith
yeah,
will
I didn't
elect.
get that either.
Honestly, I did the same thing. What the heck should I?
I went down the rabbit hole.
I didn't know if it was like our Hicks Fund, right? Is it something like that?
No. So Oliver Smith was a quote-unquote miser who had a substantial amount of money when he passed and decided not to give it to any of his descendants and made it available to be used by 8 different towns, of which Amherst happens to be one. They're all out in Franklin and Hampshire County.
Oh,
And, yeah, hang on, I have it here.
interesting.
There
somewhat
was, so, and
But
the
it's-
the descendants,
But it's just a bigger fund.
yeah, the descendants fought it, so he died in like 1845, but it didn't go into effect until like 1854, because his descendants tried fighting it. I'm sure. And they lost. And they lost. So basically, there's an elector from each of those towns, and they elect a board of trustees, and that determines how the money that remains in the annuity gets shared amongst the towns. But it only affects 8 towns in the entire state. But, yeah, it was an interesting little, yeah.
I'm glad you looked that up, because I did not.
I was interested.
I was interested
I
in
put
it,
Hicks
but I
Fund,
forgot.
question mark?
No, I went,
It mentions it somewhere else in here, too.
I went straight down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get a chance.
I didn't get into how much money was in there, no.
Well, it's gotta be a significant amount if you're going back
8
1854.
Yeah.
Across 8 towns.
They're electing somebody to figure it out.
Correct.
Yeah. My favorite was the fact that they identified him specifically as Oliver Smith, miser. So he spent never spent any of his money, and then he's donated it to all these different towns, but
Perhaps they could now call him philanthropist.
maybe.
instead of
It would be
miser.
nicer.
Miser is such a negative
Miser.
connotation.
There you go.
Yep. All right.
His descendants probably call him.
And he's that wealthy and no one's ever heard of him.
The one thing, 4.4, and I don't know whether we've seen this before, and somebody jump in if they have. The Housing Authority consists of 5 members, one of which is elected solely by the Housing Authority tenants.
I like that, and I meant to go look
I
back.
did too.
How is our housing authority, are they all
I don't
elected?
know.
It's,
Yeah, I think they're all.
They're all
right?
elected?
well, one's appointed by the state, and
I
then
think state law requires.
I think the others are all elected,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like that the housing members themselves appoint.
I did too.
Because they have a vested interest in who's
Yeah.
there, yeah.
So I made a note of that. Oh, here's all my things. Oh, going back to Oliver Smith. It's a perpetual endowment whose proceeds are distributed annually to Smith Charities, and one of the charities at one point included nominal dowries paid to newlywed brides.
Oh, my gosh.
So he had a list of charities that he favored, and that was one of them.
We don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I got a kick out of it. Anybody have anything else for Article 4? All right, Article 5.
I like-
Financial policies and procedures.
I like this article for them. They get the budget and coordinating group.
Yeah.
Just kind of a mix of different things, just to kind of go over things and make sure everything's in line. And then obviously this public forum is, everything they do here is pretty good. Just a lot of information that they can go out on. They have certain dates when the budget's out, when the town council has to get a proposed budget out, up to including the library. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, the timing. So
yeah.
the tricky thing, like, I like all the timing things because it means you know when to expect certain documents and stuff to come down.
Yep.
The tricky thing about that is if now you're locked into those dates, so what if you're not really ready for it, right?
Yeah.
You better be.
I just think
Well,
like
and,
this.
and Watertown started even earlier. They started October the year before is when the town manager had to sort of start getting stuff together.
Yeah.
But again, like, also prescribed dates, and I kind of like that.
I like the prescribed dates, though, yeah.
The public forum, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna have a town council and a strong town manager, like, to me, you do not wanna just, like, shut the door and say, well, you come to my meeting if you want. Like, you wanna go out and say, look, this is what we've been
Yep.
doing. This is the budget we're proposing. This is what the town manager put forward. This is what we are gonna be voting on. What do you think? And let people still have the ability to say, whoa, what are we doing this for? Whatever it may be. I mean, and they don't limit it to one. I mean, if it's something that's, depending on the year, I mean, you may have a year that's just pretty straightforward and just kind of filters into the next one, but, you know, what if you have a year where there's multiple things going on into the budget, or a new building, or whatever it may be, like,
There's actually quite a few public forum requirements throughout this document that I
Yeah.
kind of like that, right? Because it keeps the
Absolutely.
public engaged.
yeah.
The
Agreed.
school committee had it, the town council had
Yep.
it, like, they all had requirements to have X number of public forums in the year.
And later on, sort of speaking to what Bill had mentioned earlier, sort of with, sort of making sure there's some sort of transition where the public still can get in there if they really oppose something, you know, later on, there's the whole prescribed petition process that people can go through, if, not on the budget specifically, but on bylaws that have passed or ordinances that have passed, and, so they still haven't a direct say if they want it, but it's not too easy, you know, because they have gone to town council, so.
Yeah,
But I think this has done a good job in general of making sure that there's a lot of public input.
yeah, me too.
5.5B, so I found as much information as was in here, I found this particular clause particularly lacking. So when you go to the town's website, it turns out that there are several council committees, of which the Finance Committee is one of them, and it's made up of specifically town council members. But the interesting thing is, so that's the only, I kept looking in the charter to see if there was anything in terms of, you know, how many members, how does it work? Couldn't find anything, so I went to the website, and their website's actually really, really good. And the committee charge, so the legal reference is literally just this, 5.5B. But the website tells you who the appointing authority is, how many voting members there are, and they have 3 non-voting members made up of residents, and it just details the terms of the appointment and what the responsibilities are.
So who appoints them?
Well, it's made up of
Made up of the town
FinCom, so
council.
the town council president votes on the town council committee members, and then the town council as a whole votes on the non-voting members, which are made up of residents.
So there's 5 voting councilmen,
Yep, and
And
3
3
non-voting public members.
but they're all appointed by town council.
Yes. Yep. So the councilors have a 1-year appointment, and the residents have a 2-year appointment. And the website went into some additional detail as to the purpose and their charge and their members. But I found it interesting that it referred to this as the legal reference, and there's really not a hell of a lot here. There's more good information on the website than there is in here. But,
Yeah, it's strange that they were very prescriptive with a lot of other things, and that's when they chose to probably put the detail in the bylaws for some reason.
yeah, it's not even in the bylaws, it's on the website. There's no,
Oh, it's-
this is the only legal reference to the FinCom.
Oh, it wasn't in their bylaws either.
No,
Weird.
yeah. It was very strange.
Yeah, it leaves it to council rules in the last sentence.
I did like the attention to like planning for capital improvement
Yeah.
in here. Really kind of have like a 5-year plan and making sure you're saving the money for those things and that kind of thing. I kind of like that.
I think that's what Keith was kind of bringing up the other day, like where they used to do it is have multiple people from different committees be part of this, so they can go down and actually see what they've got and what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, not just saying, you know, department head come up and say, hey, I need to do this, you know what I mean? Like, that committee of what they're talking about, this capital improvement, they'll actually be able to report to the town council and say, these
We
are
have
the
a 5-year
reasons,
plan now.
you know?
We gotta submit a 5-year plan,
Yeah, yeah.
but, it changes every year. You might want something 1 year, they just wanna see something on paper, but, I mean, truck blows up, well, you're not gonna get that on, you know, you wanted it back, or now you need a new truck, you know, it just keeps switching around.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have a public forum for it too, like, at least I just think it gives a good idea to the public on what's going on, and what should be potential for the next 5 years, on what they need and what they're looking for.
And here's your out at 5.9. Town manager can request
Yep.
the town council grant an exception to the deadlines. Wonder how often that happens.
I don't know. I know how often it happened here.
Oh, yeah.
Still has to meet except the requirements of general laws. All right, anything else in Article 5? All right, Article 6, administrative organization.
The only thing that I marked off that I liked was this Board of License Commissioners, because it pains me to watch the first 30 minutes of every Board of Selectmen meeting approving liquor licenses and parade licenses. And to me, it seems like it's not something they should be, as Board of Selectmen, reviewing all those things, right? I think the Board of License Commissioners is a good idea.
Yeah. Consist of 5 voters appointed by the town manager.
And they still involve the same, like, police chief, public health,
Yeah.
fire chief, right? They still have to have all those inputs, but
Yeah.
just instead of doing it at the meeting, you get someone responsible for it. Or I should say, committee responsible for it.
Yeah.
I like the 6th one too. I think it gives some more power to the town manager to basically do this reorganizational plan. I think it's not for, like, obviously it's not gonna come up all the time, but I think as time goes on and the years pass by, if you realize that some of these committees that were either formed or whatever can be consolidated into one, it has the ability to clean some of this stuff up by saying, all right, this doesn't really pertain anymore. We can, you know, form one committee and have a joint one, you know what I mean? And get rid of trying to force 3 members to be appointed to something that we're not really even using anymore, you know?
Right.
I just think it gives him the ability, if you see something, he can clean it up and change it without having to go through, you know.
I think that both the town manager and the Board of Selectmen, for their individual appointments or committee appointments, had the ability to do that today. I think that we just don't always catch up on it.
Yeah.
I just think too, is that, like, he's able to bring it to town council, and town council can vote on it right away and be done with it.
Yeah.
Just put it to bed. I mean, it's just.
Right,
these
instead of
things
having to go to town
carrying-
meeting and
yeah,
having to
carrying
explain it
over-
here.
Yeah, carrying
Yeah.
over all these things and trying to change, you know, like, if it's, no, we're not using it anymore, why are we looking for 3 people to be appointed to, just because we have to? And if we're not, and it's vacant, then what are we having it for, you know, if we're not using it?
Right.
I think it just gives some ability to a strong town manager who's paying attention to what's going on to say, we can clean this up right now and be done with it. If we need to reapproach it later, we can.
Anything else in Article 6? Article 7, elections.
Oh, this was the redistricting 7.4. That was every 10 years. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Anything else in 7? Article 8, public participation mechanisms.
Yeah. Well, I just noted, like, I didn't really, the different types of public participation, right? I have open meeting, free petition, and then initiative measures. I didn't really see I didn't understand the need for the open meeting, because there's no action taken on that, right? It's just to voice opinions?
I think
Right,
it's to-
so it's just, I think it's similar to sort of making sure that you have a public meeting for.
Public
for certain
forums.
public forum, so this, if the public feels like more input was needed, or, you know, they needed to reopen a public hearing about something, perhaps, or even if an issue,
Yeah.
that they don't necessarily, you know, that
So-
the first step would be like a public forum. where you
So
could talk
interesting
about
to
it.
me was that required more signatures than like a free petition did.
But did you also notice it says residents and not voters?
Oh. That's true too, yeah.
Whereas all of the other ones required,
Voters, it says voters.
yeah, the call
yeah.
by voters.
And again,
And I almost missed it.
I wonder if that too speaks to the fact that it's college town, and there might be issues.
The college kids want to come speak
Yeah.
about.
I don't know, because honestly, like, with that disparity, it's gotta be that they're counting the students for the population, but they're not registering to vote there.
Right.
That's gotta be part of what's going on there. But I don't know, that's a guess.
It says a residence, though. The word resident shall mean a person domiciled in Amherst.
Yeah,
Which to me means you're just living there.
right.
Yeah.
You're not even a resident. You're just, well, you're a resident, but you're not like a necessarily permanent resident.
Right, yeah.
Did everybody understand the clerk of town council is now, what formerly was the town clerk? Did everybody else understand that the way I did? That there is not a
Yes, that's why
two
I read
clerks?
it.
Okay. It took me a while to figure that out.
Where is it?
It wasn't anywhere in particular, it just happened to be a note at the bottom of my page here. Because it kept talking about things having to be filed with the clerk of town council.
Oh, the
And it made me
NRC.
wonder if there was still a town clerk in addition to a clerk of town council. And there doesn't appear to be. All right, so 5% of the population is 884 votes. 20% is 3,536. And that's within the supplementary petition. And then they also have a voter participation requirement of 20% for either of these initial or supplementary petitions to pass.
You know, it occurred to me today when I was reading these that if you were to file a petition, and of course you don't know how the council's going to vote, and you think about the deadlines, they're tight, but there's nothing to preclude you, I wouldn't think, from collecting more signatures as you're going through the first phase. In other words, you did the initial petition, and you're thinking they're going to,
It's close or something.
yeah, so you would just continue to collect signatures, so that you
Yeah.
have it, so
Yeah.
that might be, it may not be as draconian sometimes as it seems. But,
Anything else with an 8? Article 9.
I know there's a lot in here. I think we should really keep this one close to us. So when our discussions come up, I think there's a lot of information in here that we can use if we decide that we're gonna take into consideration some of this.
I think theirs was well done. I liked it better than the Watertown one.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, I'm not, some of it's too much, I think, but there's also a lot of information on there we can,
Yeah,
You know?
I will admittedly say I skipped Article 10, which is the transition stuff, but there is a lot of good information in here.
Yeah.
I'm skimming over it.
I just think we need to keep, there's a couple of them that I think we could probably move on from, that, this one covers a lot of information.
This section in particular,
Yeah.
left me with more questions than,
It's the first one I've seen that, highly details, like, I understand they just switched to, which is different, but like it highly details how they're gonna put this all into effect.
Yeah. And it looks like every elected position terminates. And they have to, you know, whatever the provision for the charter calls for that body. But it looked like appointed, they let them continue, and elected, they actually had a hard termination date for them. And I'm wondering if, you know, again, if there's a legal reason for that, or is it a best practices? Anything else within 10?
I just thought I was reading 10.12C. Just interesting. Like, going back to our thoughts on the school and students permitting non-citizens to vote in elections and to seek hold electoral offices. It's something they were studying, but just speaks to the influence of the college up there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's applicable to us, but it's just kind of interesting.
I liked I found, I don't even know, it's you. This goes on forever. 10.7U on page 35. So if the charter is passed, the select board then is immediately responsible for reviewing the bylaws and making them in conformity with the charter. So the charter commission didn't have to worry about making sure the bylaws were in conformity.
And the process starts before the town council
Yes,
has to do it.
yeah, it starts with the Board of Selectmen, then they're terminated, and then town council picks it up.
Yep,
Yeah, I like that.
that's good.
Yeah. Anything else?
This was only 2 years ago, too.
Yeah.
Let me keep this one.
All right. I agree, that was an interesting one. It was long, but I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, actually, does anybody notice they talk about a creation of a ranked choice?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's one of the things they've got on their to-do list.
yeah.
What was the last page, right?
Yeah.
30.
Second to last page.
10, yeah.
Okay.
Voting on that at the state level this December.
Our next meeting is on October 7th. We'll review the North Attleboro Charter. Sandy's already given us copies.
So this is the most recent when they changed to council?
Yes,
Okay.
also from RTM.
Okay.
So we can kind of compare and contrast it with Amherst. They're both relatively recent. Any other topics for discussion? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Almost to adjourn.
Seconded?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.